right, I'm going to bring to order this meeting of the Hancock County Commissioners for May 7th, 2024. We have adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any public comment? All right. No public comment. Approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the April 23rd Commissioner Special Meeting as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Miller, are you with us?
See his name.
Commissioner,
Hello.
Good morning.
good morning.
Looks like you have anything to add to your report?
The roads have been unposted. I unposted everything on Saturday.
It's good.
Great, so I'm going to move to accept and file a UT monthly report as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then we have some contracts, correct?
Yes, some renewals.
And these had the usual increase that we've been talking about?
Franklin is no change. Burlington went up.
No other change though in the contracts, correct?
No.
So I'm going to move to approve the renewal of the solid waste agreement with the town of Franklin, Star Township 9 and 10 as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm going to move to approve the renewal of solid waste agreement with the town of Burlington and Lowell to serve townships T3MD, T4MD, the north half of T41MD and Westlake area of the T40MD.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have our district agreement.
A couple of meetings ago, you voted to join the district. This is just the paperwork.
I'm going to move to approve the special district agreement for joining the Central Maine Highlands Fire and EMS District. Number one for provisions of fire and emergency rescue as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then we have our Rocky Mountain Trail Riders Agreement.
I'm going to move to approve the renewal of the Rocky Mountain Trail Riders Agreement with the county commissioners for the ATV use of the Myra Road in Township 32MD is presented.
Second the motion?
Are there any changes in these two ATV agreements?
No, the only change is the dates.
Right? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to approve the renewal of the Rocky Mountain Trail Riders Agreement with the county commissioners for the ATV use of the Nicotawas Road T3ND as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Would like to discuss the field trips. We talked about doing them this spring.
Yep.
Basically, it takes 2 days. We can't do it all in one day.
I think I would get with Michael and just see if we have a second meeting that seems to be that we can kind of control the agenda on, make it a short meeting so that we can do it. I don't really want to make it another day. It's too hard for me to get another day off. So
Yeah, especially this time of
I'd
year.
like to have it be
Yep.
after the commissioners, after the second commissioners meeting. Either, I'm not sure what this month's like or next month. Start on one of those two.
Okay, so if we did one on the second meeting of May and one on the second meeting of June, something like that.
Yeah, if we could try to keep the agendas quick and light as possible. Those two meetings.
And then what do they take? How long will it take off? Half a day, whole day?
It's an all day.
Yeah, it takes almost all day. It's
Lot of trips.
if your meeting was short and we could get out of the meeting by 10 o'clock, then maybe we could get done by 4:30. And I guess it depends how much of each end of the UT you want to see.
All right,
Millard, what's the southern end? When you say
Well, I
this,
would think on the southern end, I would think you'd want to look at the Macomb Bridge. Maybe, I don't know if you need to go into Township 7, if there's anything there you want to look at, Martins Ridge Road. But I would think definitely the Macomb Bridge that we're talking about, that's been repaired, we were talking about funding. And going into Township 16 and look at where the windmills are going. The solar arrays are going, and then swing up around the windmills.
so that'd be the
And
southern
then,
trip.
and then maybe up to Back Road, Lower Lead Mountain Pond. I think that'll take most of the day.
We go over to Bennington, walk that way, like we did last time. We skipped that. Remember we went over.
Whichever way you want to go, we could go from the go in and go to the solar array, and then back out and go to the windmills, and then go from there right up through Speck Pond Road, right out to Route 9 and over to Back Road, Lead Mountain Pond.
John, yeah, Monday would be out of the question. What's that? I think Monday would be out of the question. Check for getting from here. I don't know if it's in the States. Yeah, that's my weekend.
Well, that southern trip would be more than, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, so if we.
Right. Yeah, the second trip to go up north is just go to Nicatowas Lake, look at the salt sand shed, check the Nicatowas Road.
Getting to Myra though takes you half a day.
Yeah.
We can't do it by airplane.
Well, let's look at the southern one, Michael.
Yeah.
For the first thing, the southern trip.
all right. All right, so we'll try to get it scheduled for second meeting of May, June. Okay,
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, commissioners.
thank you.
Thank you, Millard.
All right, now we've got airport. Leroy, you there?
All good out here.
Yeah.
We're looking for a nice big airplane for a tour of the UT. Can you help us?
Yeah, that's what, mine isn't it.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have anything to add to your report?
Nope, all good. A little bit of pavement's gone down. They're probably gonna come back tomorrow and put down the rest of the binder on the parking lot. So we're holding our fingers for the 17th of May.
So I got a question for you. Your report, you got half of it in red ink. Is there any significance?
Yeah.
You're wondering.
That was pulled over from somewhere else.
Okay, all right, we were just kind of wondering.
That was a cop.
Letter from Modern.
Okay.
Yeah, that was copied from Modern. Yeah.
Okay.
It got us to read it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, okay. All right, so-
Noted. Yeah, so, and it doesn't look like they're making much progress.
No, they haven't made much progress, which, you know, at some point, we really probably should look into that. That last agreement that was signed with Columbia, you know, they had things that were supposed to have been done by the end of last year that didn't get completed. I don't really know how we want to handle that. They keep telling me they can't find any mechanics, and they're telling us that the tank is on its way, been ordered.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to accept and file the airport monthly report as presented.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
thank you.
No, thanks.
I will say, people were very appreciative and nice about. Yeah.
Put this on the line.
So he had another event that he had, yeah, so.
All right, we've got Andy's monthly report.
I'm gonna move to accept and file the MA monthly report as presented.
second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we've got a request for hiring a full-time administrative assistant.
And Leroy's supposed to be staying on if you have any
Leroy,
questions.
I'm gonna get the mic back on. Yeah, I'm here. We've met with her once informally down in Andy's office, and then with Michael and Mary Ann. She
Everybody's-
seems-
As far as I know.
everything's good, all right.
So I'm gonna move to approve hiring Sarah Karam of Sedgwick as a full-time administrative assistant for emergency management agency in the airport at a pay rate of $8C, $20.71 effective May 11th, the start date to be determined.
How do you guys divide up the time, out of curiosity, how does that work?
So the way it worked with Chris was 1 week they would be here 3 days, 2 days up in Ellsworth, and then the next week it would be 3 days in Ellsworth, 2 days here. And then if they, if we needed to swap some days, then that wasn't a problem.
So I'll second the motion, come on. Proving employment without a start date.
Well, we have an effective date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to do with an obligation with her previous employer.
Yeah, that was the understanding we had. She wanted to give a little more time to the previous employer because there was some vacation issues going on there. So she was just trying to be a good human being.
Well, and it's issues like if your employment days are the 11th, you don't go to work till June 1st, you get a holiday and you're not even working yet. Right. Qualify for benefits, so
Right.
that's the only issue there, really. That's between you guys, I guess.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Thanks.
all right, we got another good human. All right, district attorney.
Morning.
There's two agenda items. The first is the request to hire Dean Nason.
Is this Dean right next to you, I said?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
So I'm gonna move to approve hiring Dean Nason as full-time victim witness advocate effective 5/18/24 pay rate of 11B as requested.
Second the motion.
Dean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and background, and how it all comes together?
I live in Blue Hill since September of 2022. Lived the previous 57 years in New Jersey. I currently work as a paralegal for Department of Transportation in Augusta. It was getting tiresome, driving 85 miles each way. So
Sounds good.
I'm excited about the opportunity, and I'm excited to be changing my commute from 4 hours a day to half an hour.
Good to have you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, aye.
This was caused by the promotion.
Karen Brown is retiring.
Oh, retired.
There's going to be a 2-week overlap with Dean coming in for training purposes. She retires
After 30 years.
at least.
It's all right.
Been through 4 administrations.
Big shoes to fill.
So I understand.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right, and then we have Chief Deputy Bond.
That was reviewed and signed, and I believe the county has.
I'm gonna move to acknowledge the sufficiency and approve and sign the chief deputy's bond as requested by the district attorney.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. One.
All right. Ready? How you doing this morning?
Morning.
Couple quick things. After the accept the resignation of Travis Young effective April 26, 2024.
So moved.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request approval of 6-month contract with Chelsea Howard, family nurse practitioner for jail for medical services.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, those in favor?
You're all set with that.
Well, this is just, we met with our, attorney with the drafting RFP. Hers expired the end of April, we were supposed to expend it 6 months while we're waiting the RFP to get, to close that date.
All those in favor?
But I don't know about Dakota.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Sheriff. Should purchase new tasers.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
This morning, joining us by Zoom would be the sales rep, Axon, Mr. Cruz. He's available to answer any questions, but before he starts, in your packet, there was a new updated quote presented. We went from 32 to 33. I wanted to join have the DA investigator added to it.
That's the 150 on 4340, right?
And one of the things we were asking, maybe I think this is one of the things we were asking about was at the end of the 5 years. Is it really a lease or is this, are we buying it and do we own them at the end of the 5 years?
Can I have Mr. Cruz jump on and answer any questions at all?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yes, so we don't do any leases. The department will own the hardware. And at the end of the 5 years, they can choose to either update their hardware, continue with their current hardware and just get the consumables, i.e. the cartridges that are expended when fired. So there's a lot of flexibility after the 5 years, but ultimately they will always own the hardware.
Questions do you have?
Well, last time we met, we asked Michael to try to do some kind of an analysis as to what it costs to simply purchase this as opposed to this 5-year bundle plan. He sent us a bunch of information here. Michael, are you satisfied? You've got all the information you need? Really good.
Well, I mean, to a degree, you have to make some assumptions. I did kind of take the quote that was given, the 32, obviously the 33 came in after the fact, but and try to pull out every single item that was in the bundle. And I did ask the salesperson about that and sent him the spreadsheet as well. And he didn't dispute anything I had on there other than initially some of the items he said really were that were highlighted on that spreadsheet I gave you in the yellow. Some of those items were really just kind of one-time things, so you could divide them up among the 32 deputies and spread the costs out that way and come up with it. So and basically trying to pull out the items from the bundle quote and using the price sheet that came along with one of the links that was provided by the salesperson that Chief Deputy Birch forwarded to me, came up with a price of about $3,789.25. And then in order for them to have, for one individual to have it, you have to make the assumption, obviously, that they're gonna have to have the chargers and the software and all the other stuff that goes with it. So that yellow section is basically the cost associated with buying at least one to be 2 items, depending on the thing. I think most of them are 1, but dividing that up among what the price would be per officer, which I think is $91 I came up with. And then that gave you a total of $3,880.25. And then from that point forward, it's where it gets a little fuzzy because I don't have definitive numbers. When I talked to the salesperson, he said what he based the quote on the 5,300, which was what I was trying to coordinate with him to try to understand how he got to his price of estimating 5,300. And I only had basically about 3,800 or so. And he indicated basically that you took the total price of that bundle that was estimated at the time and multiplied that by 16, I think it ended up being like 16.8%, to spread that out over the 4 or 5 years of the time period. And what that was to essentially account for the cost of inflation over the 5 years, so that when they're sending you new prices or new equipment each year, the price of that is still already, you've already purchased it, it's already set in the original bid price. But that's based upon, just an estimated 16.8, and he said prices this past year went from 8 to 11% increase. So, I mean, the salesperson would have to answer exactly how he comes up with those percentages beyond what I just explained. I mean, why 16 point whatever is a reasonable figure for this company to charge, and why we pay for that. But essentially, that's to cover all those additional materials, the
Over the 5.
equipment, software, training, all that other stuff over the 5 years. And then that I got it down closer once I did that. I broke down his numbers, come up with a 53 and some change. And then I applied that on to essentially the calculation that I did, and it was close to 4,500 or so. So it was about an $800 difference, but I also didn't have the inflation of the additional percentage upon what he was basing it on. So, I'd like to say 100% I know, but I mean, I had to make some calculations based on what I was being told by the dealer and those percentages. So, and again, that gets back to, do you accept the premise of the agreement, the additional materials being sent, and then the cost factor being built into the overall price?
I'd like to back up a little bit though, because first of all, I do not see an urgency today to buy new tasers. Last meeting, you were given a list of the 21 tasers that the sheriff's department presently has. None of them are approaching the 10-year mark. The oldest one here is 8 years and 4 months. Half of these are under 5 years. So there isn't any urgency today to buy these. And when they get ready to buy, they're going to go from the X2, which they have now, to the X7, which is a new model. It's going to require new training. And presently, the sheriff's department does not have somebody managing their taser program. When Dan Harlan got down, they lost their taser manager. And I'd like to propose that we don't do anything today, that we prioritize getting somebody trained to manage the taser program in the sheriff's department. Somebody who can talk to Mr. Cruz on the same level and understand everything that Michael might be a little fuzzy on with regards to whether or not it's in the best interest to purchase these outright or to take the bundle program that they're offering. And basically come back this fall, while we still have the ARPA funding, with a recommendation on how we're going to buy these, get them at least committed by the end of the year so that we can lock in our ARPA funding. And that way we do two things. First of all, we have somebody trained who's prepared to train the deputies on the X7. Second of all, it extends our lifetime of the X7 out almost another year, so that we're not, because we still have a 10-year window on the X7. That's just going to bring that date closer that we have to look at replacing them again. And so I'd like to suggest that we simply do nothing today, with the understanding that the sheriff's department gets somebody trained. And there's a couple other things that I think we might want to consider. First of all, there is presently a class action suit against Axon Taser. Ironically, one of the 3 agencies involved is the city of Augusta here in Maine. And it has to do with monopoly pricing. I have no idea what that's about. I only know that it's pending out of New Jersey in the federal court. But there could be an opportunity by this fall, if it gets resolved, to change the pricing structure in our favor. And that we may want to just wait and see. And while we're waiting for the sheriff's department to train somebody, that we'll see where this class action suit plays out. And also, there's also some some research and development being worked on right now to change the design of tasers. Right now, the present tasers that Exxon Taser is proposing is a projectile that's connected to the device by a copper wire. The new technology they're looking at is a wireless system that is activated by radio frequencies. That's Star Trek to me. I don't know about this, but anyways, there is development out there that may change the technology. And if we put this off for another 6 or 8 months before we make a determination that perhaps that technology will come to fruition, and we may want to decide on purchasing a different style. So I think by general consensus this morning, gentlemen, we should just tell the sheriff that we're going to put this on hold, select somebody within your organization, get them trained, get the trainer trained, and come back to us this fall with a full recommendation with our assurance that we're going to buy new tasers this fall and have that paid for with our funds.
What's the,
Just a couple of
do you
things.
guys have a plan on the training part?
So we already have 2 people scheduled to be training, or taser instructors. They're actually headed for training on July 15th. We also have reached out to Darren Moody of the Bucksport Police Department. He's a taser certified instructor, so he's offered to assist us if we need help, because he is actually trained on the new taser as well. And as far as our current tasers, we actually don't have any spares available because they're all broken. So that will leave our new hire who's coming in May without a taser.
Well, Mr. Cruz, you presently have X2s in stock, is that correct?
So the X2s have been discontinued.
I know it, but you still have them in stock, correct?
They may be available, and I say may only because a lot of departments had recently put in an order within the last year or two of a 5-year contract, so they get priority because they're under contract. So we could try to order more, but the continuation issue would be the consumables. The cartridges and things like that may not be available moving forward.
Oh,
Sorry.
remember, gentlemen, if we buy X7s today, we're gonna throw away somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 worth of good serviceable devices because there's no use for those. I think Exxon's gonna give us like $3,000 or something like that as a trade-in, but there's nothing wrong with the tasers we have now, knowing that the sheriff's department has scheduled a trainer. Then by September, October, they're gonna be in a good position to come back to us with a recommendation by a well-trained member of their department on a recommendation for what we should buy in 2025 and how we're going to buy that as a bundle as opposed to buying outright.
Can we say, well,
My first question was, training. I thought the training that's part of this bundle, is that the same training that you're talking about?
That would be a great question for Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, so the training that's part of the bundle is to train the department's trainers. If they've already piggybacked onto another department and they will be trained on T7, then absolutely we can have that removed from the quote. No sense in doing that twice and paying for it.
And what's the value of that, Mr. Cruz? Any idea? The value of that training?
I can tell you right now. One moment, sir. I believe here.
So this training, Lieutenant, this training is that you're sending folks to in July?
Yeah.
For,
July 15th is the specific date for
Yeah.
that. We're sending 2 deputies.
so there's costs associated.
Where's that gonna be, buddy?
That is a great question. That would be a question for Lieutenant Dupuy.
I mean, does he have to go to Phoenix to get it done? Or can it be done?
No, I think it's in the state.
It's in state,
Yeah.
I see.
Okay, but that's not the same, I guess.
It's actually in Orono.
So my question is that part of this or is it?
I'm
Mr.
assuming
Cruz said
yes,
that
it is.
They'll provide that training in the bundle if we want to buy that, but if we're going to provide that ourselves, he'll take that out of the bundle.
Yeah, I fully understand that, but what I did know was if this training on July 15th was this, or is that something?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it pertains to all taser devices. I'm not sure. I don't think it's device specific.
But
I
it
think
is,
it's just
but it is through the
taser
company.
in general. Yeah, it's through Axon.
Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Cruz told me a week ago, I talked with him, that training is device specific. So in other words, if we went from X2 to X7, the officer would have to be retrained in the X7 because of the device. Is that true, Mr. Cruz?
Yes, sir. Officers have to be certified on the device that they carry. So if we were to, let's say, continue on with X2 and they had to recertify in July or August, for example, then when they purchase, the department purchases T7, that they would, all the officers would have to be trained on that. And I just pulled up the quote as a point of clarification. What's included in here for training is for the trainers to get recertified every 2 years. We just include that. That way they'll be able to be trained through the lifetime of the contract. So as new officers come on, so on and so forth, you'll always have someone certified with a valid license to do any training for the department.
What was the value of that? Did you find that? What was the cost of that?
Can you unmute Dakota?
Which one?
Dakota,
iPhone.
iPhone.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can.
Okay. So there are 2 deputies that are attending a training in Orono on July 15th to be trained on the Taser 7, since that they're discontinuing the X2s. It doesn't make sense to send them to be trained on an X2 only to then turn around and have to train them on the X7s and incur another cost, a year from now. So with that being said, I did enroll them in training for the Taser 7s. The cost for that, I was taking out of our current training budget. I believe it was approximately $495 a person, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that.
That's correct, sir.
And okay, perfect. And so, in addition to that, they will be trained on the X7s. So we will have certified instructors to be able to train the department. We also have Corporal Burial from Penobscot County that you guys had heard from last week. That has offered his assistance for training as well. And in addition to that, Sergeant Darren Moody from Bucksport PD is also a Taser 7 instructor and has offered his assistance in training the department as well. Bucksport just recently also made the transition by means of the bundle package from the X2s to the Taser 7s due to the transition in the market.
One was the credit for the returned units. That's not figured in here, that would just.
Yeah, that was just $3,900 from what I recall.
Well, 21.
And that wasn't part of the calculation.
Okay. So including the ones, because we just bought those not long ago.
We've got 4 of these that are less than a year old, a little over a year old.
And then, what was the lead time? Like if we placed an order.
Mr. Cruz still with us?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I just didn't want to speak out of turn. The lead time from signed contract to product in hand, ready to deploy is about 4 months.
Okay, that's what I had remembered. Okay.
Also, if we had X7s in the department and we had an emergency, how long would it take to get a replacement?
About 24 hours. Part of this package is our no questions asked warranty, whether it's a defect, broken line of duty, or quite literally, we had a rookie run over his taser 2 weeks ago in one of my departments. I get an email from the department that says, hey, our taser's broken. We send one from our facility in Arizona, overnight delivery. And then whenever the department gets a chance, they send us back the broken unit. So we try to eliminate downtime so that way the department doesn't have to pay for an extra handle to just sit around, because you're going to have that turnaround time built into the contract.
So gentlemen, I think things are lining up real well. In other words, they'll get their officer trained by August at the latest and whatnot. They'll understand exactly pricing so that they can discuss that with Cruz, and we can figure out whether or not we want to bundle or whether we want to simply purchase directly without the bundle. What is the best for us?
Just a point of clarification, sir, the purchasing directly or the bundle, it would be the same. The bundle is just everything an officer would need to operate the taser. So purchasing them individually would just be more expensive because nothing in the bundle is something that is erroneous or unneeded.
Well, I built on the 4%.
And that's the problem, Mr. Cruz, is that with the information that we've been given, what Michael has determined, I don't see $145,000 worth of expenses here if we buy these things ourselves. First of all, gentlemen, I don't think there's any reason to buy 33. Mr. Cruz, do I understand that if you buy 31, you get the 32nd free? Is that correct?
30 or more.
30 or more.
You get one extra. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think it's more than just a coincidence they won't go with the 30. They're taking advantage of a free one. But if you add up the people that need those and have 4 for the jail and a couple of spares, I have 29. And at $5,800 a piece or something, whatever they are, or whatnot, I don't think we need to have half a dozen laying around not being used, especially knowing that if we have a problem with one, that Axon can overnight it and we can have it within a day or so. So
you're just questioning the number of spares.
right, and I'm saying that at some point with a trained deputy, trained in the TASER program, sitting down and putting together a list of what he needs, then we can come up with a specific price as to what we want to pay and have that all in place so that we can place an order before December 31st, get these funds committed. And that shouldn't be done today because I don't think the SO is ready to complete that.
So my next question was sole sourced. Is Sourcewell
Well, that's the
contract puts that to bed? Is that correct?
I mean, I think that's the argument, and that's through the state as well, which has kind of been written into law, if you read what I sent last time.
Yeah.
About if the state has gone through that process, then
So that's what allows us to do
I
it.
believe that's the argument that's being made.
And sole source regardless of sole source and whatnot, I think that's the issue really is that Axon Taser is really the only game in town. They're the only place you can buy this type of device, and so they would truly be considered sole source for this product.
So, Mr. Chairperson, can I ask Mr. Cruz real quick? I mean, when we spoke, I understood you to basically say that you really wouldn't allow us to come in and buy individually, like a package deal of all these things. That would most likely filter into one of your bundles. Is that correct? Am I incorrect? Because that was part of the discussion in terms of trying to find out what an actual individual cost would be to replace one for one individual.
Yes, sir. That's correct. So to kind of highlight it in 2 different ways. An example, if 2 years from now you add another officer, we just do another bundle. That officer has everything. What's included in the bundle is the battery to operate the device, the warranty on the battery and the device itself, a holster, training cartridges. That's per officer. And then, sir, as you mentioned, the list of items on the bottom, whether it's a battery dock, a target for training, we don't need 1-to-1 per officer. That's just calculated based on the total number of officers in the department. So when you're looking at an individual officer, we're giving them what they need: access to the online portal for training, documentation, a battery, a holster, the device itself, and then warranties for those things. So as you can imagine, that's the minimum to deploy an officer in the field with that device. So if you bought them piecemeal, that's why we were kind of doing the math backwards. We never really sell them piecemeal because a handle by itself is fairly useless. It's inert. If we need replacement holsters and things, obviously those we generally just ship you free of cost, to be quite frank. But that's why there is no standard price. No one has ever bought them all piecemeal because they don't function independently. And it would just be more expensive if we were to piecemeal it out anyway.
Mr. Cruz, your listing, somebody has listed 15 different cartridges of different, why are there 15 different cartridges listed for the TASER 7?
Yes, sir. So there's 2 different types of cartridges, one close quarter and one standoff. As the probes have a fixed angle, obviously we have 2 different cartridges depending on the distance of the subject. The reason there are so many line items for that is part of this bundle is buying all of the cartridges needed for the full 5 years. So all of the required cartridges that must be shot yearly for recertification on the device, and then 2 live duty cartridges per officer per year. So that is this bundle is, we call it a fixed cost. Unless you add officers, there will be no new costs for your department, no matter how many live fires you have, no matter how much training you do. If at any point the department's running low on cartridges, they literally send me an email and say, hey, we need more of this type, and they're shipped out to them.
I received 2 quotes here. One is showing as 145,000 and one is showing as 150,000. Is there a,
Yeah, that's the difference between the 32 and the 33.
okay, 5, okay.
So, given, I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me with how many spares you were gonna have.
So for the 33, the newest quote, we had 4 for the jail with 1 docking station, 24 for patrol. That included the DA investigator and 1 for civil. That also included a docking station, the charging of the batteries, the download upgrades, and then 5 spares.
So that's a total of 9 spades.
Was it 95?
No, 5 spares total.
Yes, 5.
You said 4 to jail and 5 to sheriff's office?
4 for the jail, 24 for the sheriff's office, and 5 spares.
Oh, 4, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, fine.
So I think we need a couple of spares. I just don't need, I don't know that we need 5. That's really a question for Mr. Cruz.
I would not recommend having 5 spares on hand with this package, and you have the basically immediate replacement. If anything, 1 spare, if there's ever a time when maybe a part-time officer, there's an event in the city where there might be 1 extra one issue. But frankly, I don't think 5 spares would be necessary, and that could cut some cost without affecting the program's functionality.
So, what would make sense would be to buy 30. We get 31. So,
That's correct. Yes, sir.
and that gives us 3 spares anyways. Is my math right there?
Well, we were at
If you bought
33.
If you bought 29,
No, at 33, there's 5 spares. So that would give us 3 spares.
well, I have 2 spares with 29 devices. I don't know where,
But you want to get 30 to get the best pricing.
but yeah, 31st is free, so if you gotta buy 30, you gotta get 31 to get 1 free.
No, you gotta buy 30.
That's what I'm saying. So the 31st is free, so you have to buy 30. I'm saying we don't need 30. I'm saying we need 29. That gives us 2 spans. Now, I don't know where my math is different from yours. You have a list right there, chief? 'Cause I'm talking
Can you
about the
review the
sheriff.
quota again?
You can do
I'm
that.
talking
Well,
about
I had, so if you want to drop spares and go down to 29,
I have 29 with 2 spares, chief.
okay, so I have 24 total for patrol. That includes a DA investigator and 1 for civil, and then 4 for the jail.
That's 28.
Dakota, I mean,
Yeah. He's,
And again, gentlemen, this is the discussion that we should have and refine in September, October, when we're getting ready to place it in the water. I think
If I may, real quick, I was just gonna say, in regards to that spare, the numbers, it is 28 is what we would provide the tasers that we're requesting without any spares. So the 30 would put us at 2 spares. So that's like Commissioner Parity was saying, with 30, you'd get with 2 spares, you'd get that one for free, which I think would be a good working number. But that's all in regards to the spares.
So you'd end up with 3 spares. But having bought 2.
buying 30 and getting it free.
Yeah.
Again, gentlemen,
Well, I'm just, you add an officer, although it could be done then. That's true.
I'm just saying that this discussion needs to be refined and this fall, when we're ready to place an order.
My only thing is, so I'm not arguing with you on it, but so like, in terms of the refinement, one thing that you hopefully can refine out, I'm just not sure. Like, what other information we can get.
I sense that Michael's a little frustrated with not getting what he feels is good concrete information as to what these cost. Now, I understand Mr. Cruz is saying it makes no difference whether you buy each bundle, it's the same price. It's just that do we really truly understand what's in the bundle? Things in there that we're going to do ourselves, such as training. I mean, we would have paid for training this morning had we not asked about that. And I think the best person to deal with Exxon and Mr. Cruz is our trained Sheriff's Department manager of TASER program. And we'll have that come August.
So to answer your question, the only part that's uncertain to me is when he throws out the cost of living estimates for going forward. But the bundle packages, he pretty much stated concrete that that's 4%. So again, if you accept the premise that you're buying everything now, and over the next 5 years, they will be giving you the other stuff that you bought the equal 5 years from now, then the items that he's quoted, that I put together for you, are part of the package that they're saying is needed to equip one officer. Their position, I don't believe, is going to change.
Yeah.
The sheriff's position may, but either way, that's still not part of the bundle that they sell. So, I mean, the only thing I'm fuzzy on is when he's throwing out 16.8% over a 5-year period. Well, he doesn't know that. I don't know that because we don't know the future. So I had to, kind of refine that number with him at the time to try to get back to see if the calculation that I was trying to do would be about the same. But since they don't sell wholesale package deals like that anyway, it doesn't matter because they're going to bundle them for you.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to do with my calculation of the state for the record. It's just what you need and whether or not you accept what it is they're asking you to buy. Because as far as I can tell, the price isn't going to change over the next few months. You can ask the salesperson on that because I don't work for them and I don't get a commission or anything out of this. I want to make sure the county does what it does, but it's not because I haven't done the best with the information that's there. It's just you're making some assumptions about the future built into the price, which is a little strange, but that's the way to do business.
Well, they're taking a stab at it.
Yeah.
And who knows what inflation is gonna be. It's a reasonable stab.
Right, if they're doing 4% a year and it goes up 5%, you're still getting the deal.
Yeah.
So on the training question, if we didn't have them go to the training through the company, are we saying that we could do the training with the officer in Bucksport?
Well, they would just have to be available on the days that we want to do our training. So obviously that'd be something. So it'd be a coordination thing, but.
Corporal Burial from Penobscot already assured us that whenever we scheduled, if we got this package and got these tasers, they sent Corporal Burial right down to get us all trained.
But Mr. Cruz had indicated that this is for current training, not that training, as I understand it.
They're trained on the new taser.
Yeah, but what Mr. Cruz said was what's built into this pricing is the recurrent training as opposed to this training that you're talking about.
It's the recurrent on the X7,
Yeah,
not X2s that presently hold.
that's right.
So it's all new device training.
Well, right, but you would only need that training one time while you have those X7s, and then the extra training is just the consumables that you have to use for the training each year.
Isn't it recertification?
Yeah, so each year you have to shoot 2 cartridges to recertify. So that's built into the prices, I think, is what they're calling the training. It would be the consumables that go along with that.
Just to clarify, sir, it is the consumables, but it's also the trainers must get recertified periodically. That is also included. So it will be the same training, but it's a research for the trainers. So that way the department always has somebody able to train anybody else in the department. So both the consumables and the coursework, if you want to call it, are included.
Yeah.
And
So
just to speak on that, Corporal Barrio or Sergeant Moody from Bucksport, like Chief Birch was saying, would be available to initially train us. However, if there's a 4-month lead time, we would have our own trainers by then. I mean, certainly you could save a cost and say, well, well, we don't need to send those deputies to training. My rebuttal to that would be, I think obviously it just to be able to have somebody in-house as a certified trainer, both to manage the program, but also to provide that training yearly moving forward in the future so that you're not every year relying on other departments just to maintain your certification. I think that's beneficial, especially in the grand scheme of things.
Nobody's saying that we should have trainers. In fact, I'm encouraging that we have our own trainers. So I mean, get those trainers trained, those deputies trained, so they can manage, our own program and train our deputies.
But don't they train to get the trainer certified? You're having to buy the bundle.
No. They're sending their 2 people to Orono in July to train them on the X7. That's not related to. So what you're doing, you're training the trainer.
So I have a question. The 2 quotes, one quote is 32, in other words, paying for 31 and getting the 32nd. The other quote is buying 32, getting the 30. If we buy 30 and we get, can I just use that same math, or do you have what that figure is for 30? Buying 30 and getting 31.
I can have a quote put together for you. The math would be about the same as far as the total number divided by the total number of units divided by that. It will actually be a little less. It will be a bit of a savings because when we say a spare, it's a spare handle. It is not the battery. Well, it's a spare handle and battery. It's not also the licensed cartridges and stuff. So reducing the total number of from 33 to 30, for example, is going to be a decent price difference. That other package you get is a handle because we're not going to include the license and cartridges for someone who isn't going to be using them. It's just spare hardware. So that's the difference.
So the reason I was asking that question is I was going to try to take action, but it sounds like what we need to do is I am after hearing Mr. Cruz and listening to everything, I think we should be buying 30 and getting 1, and then if we had all of those ducks in order, I would be prepared to make a motion to purchase them. But we don't have that here, but it sounds like that would be very hard to do.
We could use a not to exceed.
If I knew what that dollar amount was, I just, I'm afraid of messing up.
Well,
I can tell you, sir, it'll be less than the original quote with 32 on it. So it'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 138. I could have that quote by the end of the day. Obviously, I know the meeting will be over at that time, but I'm pretty confident it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 138K. If we go with 30 units, it'll include 1 spare hardware, nothing else as far as the components of the bundle change, just the quantity, right around that 138.
And that's the problem, because trying to take the numbers that Michael was giving us and whatnot, for 29, I come up with $112,000. And I'm sure that that's not accurate. I'm just sitting here today wondering why I'm down so low at 112 when somebody else is talking 150. So I agree with we're not ready today to do anything, and quite honestly, I'd like to see somebody standing behind that podium at some point who's been fully trained, who can talk the language, and instead of the 3 of us at Michael muddling our way through something we're just totally unprepared to deal with.
We had that with Corporal Burial last week. We had that opportunity. So. And I think he spoke pretty well and highly of the new technology as far as the X7 goes and the benefits that come along with that.
Well, I'd be prepared to, I guess, Mr. Chair, I think we need to move ahead with this at some point. I don't think there's an emergency, but I think we need to move ahead with that at some point. I'm okay with delaying it, but I'm also okay with doing it now, just so we can have this discussion.
I think it's better for us to have a hard number for 1.
I agree.
So I think we should get a quote, for the 30.
So in terms of that quote, does that take off the training element as well, just to make sure that we don't get a price
wanna
and
pay-
come back?
We don't want to pay for the training twice. I'm just having a hard time figuring out what's
Well,
included.
I just don't want him to include it, and then we're back here having the same conversation again. Why are we sending these guys? I mean,
Well,
if you're
you
not
get
intending on it,
trained-
then.
You get trained once to be a trainer, but you have to recertify every year, just as though, like, if I was not a trainer and I needed to use a taser, I'd have to be certified every year. So it's, it's the same training essentially. I mean, you're gonna have to pay for it one way or another because they have to be recertified. So I don't think you can get rid of that training line out of the quote.
So then what's the question of the whole discussion about, let's wait until people get trained and we're sending them in Orno anyway, if it's not part of this deal? I mean, that's some of the confusion here too. Like, why are we talking about pulling stuff out of a package if the package is the package? And it's not gonna impact your price or anything you're gonna do in 3 or 4 months. And that's a legitimate question. I'm not trying to push for, I'm not trying to push against.
I
I'm
agree.
just asking the question, why then are we even talking about? Why wouldn't you just then say, this is gonna be training, this is part of the price, this is where we go, if you're gonna have to pay for it anyway? And that's a legitimate question, can somebody answer that?
Well, that's my point, that I don't want to pay for it twice.
Well, of course.
And I can't figure out if we're paying for it twice. If we're sending somebody July 15th and it's outside of this, we're paying for it somehow.
Well, Mr. Cruz already said he's going to take that out of the,
As I understand it, the guys that are being trained in Orono are trainers.
Correct.
They're the trainers you need. And the recertification that's in part of the contract is the recertification that everybody needs.
So the trainer and the trainee.
Right.
are they both in that bundle? Train the trainer is in the bundle and
Maybe Mr. Cruz-
recertification.
maybe Mr. Cruz can answer that.
Yes, sir. All the training for both what we would call line officers and trainers is included for the full 5 years. Now, to shed some clarity, if individuals in the department go before this contract is signed or before they get the hardware, they're still going to get the value out of the training included because, as everyone mentioned, they have to recertify at a certain point well before the 5-year life of the contract expires. So really all they're doing is showing up prepared and saving time. But as far as the cost of training, they're going to use that certificate at some point in those 5 years. I believe it's 2-year research. So it will get used.
And Mr. Cruz, if I may, just to clarify, I think what they're talking about is that $495 training to be an instructor that we're sending people to in July. That is not included in this bundle, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
That's
Okay.
So we have to send them to the training outside of that, regardless.
So what are we doing? You want to get a firm quote for 30 and then they'll come back?
Yeah.
Is that? Bill, is that what your thoughts are?
I've got a question for you guys for a second. So on the urgency with which you want to get the tasers, I know it's, some of it has to do with the ARPA funds are here now. Make sure it gets taken care of. So I guess I'm wondering, in a practical sense, how much it's going to affect if, you pretty much know that you've got a commitment from us that we're going to get you tasers with ARPA funds sometime between now and the end of the year. We're going to commit money to do it. So is it really putting the department in some kind of, in a bad position by having it happen?
Well, I guess the question is like, how much liability are we willing to take on as a county if we don't have these less than lethal options? Because if one of them breaks, like Mr. Cruz said, the possibility of getting it replaced or even getting cartridges in the future is really diminished because they're not continuing that model. So like Dakota had texted me, his is broken and we don't have one for our new officer that we're hiring this month. So it's, it just really depletes our options as far as how we can use less lethal options, you know, for our officers, not only for protection of us, but for the protection of the public, so.
So where you stand right now, are there any spares?
No. There are no working spares. Which, like I said, we don't have one for the new officer that's being hired in May. So, I mean, that's just, do you want to just continue spending money on something that's not going to be usable, or buy something now that's going to be usable for the foreseeable future?
So,
That's like, you know, buying a new car because you don't want to spend $1,000 to repair it. You know, I mean, there is still a lot of value in the present system. And
But the difference in repairing a car is there's parts that are continually being made for the car. There's just like he said, you may not even be able to buy a handle because they already have commitments to other agencies that are still using the X2.
I don't want to put Mr. Cruz on the spot, but I spoke with him a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And he said that they had between 12 and 15 months worth of X2s to cover the warranty of the ones that they had out there with them. So
None of ours are under warranty anymore.
nevertheless, Exxon Taser has a stockpile of X2s, a limited number. And I'm sitting here saying, is he really gonna say no if you call up and say, I gotta buy one now? We're gonna buy all new X7s this fall, but I need an X2 today. Is he gonna say no? So anyways,
It's not about me saying no, it's about availability. Because if someone's under a 5-year contract, they take priority. Believe me, I want to get the department whatever it needs. I don't pretend to know exactly what's best. I know Taser. So if they want to continue with X2, I will absolutely do everything in my power to support that. But what I don't want is they say, hey, we really need one, and I cannot get it for them. Believe me, I have no problem trying to get it. But the 12 to 18 months is total. A lot of that is dedicated towards existing contracts. And the X2 was sunset in December. So we're already about 6.5, 7 months into that 12 to 18 month window. So that's the only reason that I think there would be some urgency, is I don't want to be in a position where I have nothing to send the department.
and good management, gentlemen, if, you know, if they needed one today, I'll bet the sheriff could get by without his. I'll bet the civil deputy could get by without his for a period of time. So this liability that Buddy's talking about, I think, can be diminished with good management.
Just to speak on that real quick, commissioners, the sheriff doesn't have one that I'm aware, and I don't recall giving the civil deputy one. I'd have to double check on that, but you know, I also know one of our detectives doesn't have one either. So we have started to pull from people that we could, because we don't have any other operating spares.
and there's I wish we had a quote for the 30. I'm willing to make a motion not to exceed, but it would be better if we had an actual quote to act on. Doing this in the fall, to me, doesn't prolong it. We've had this discussion, I'm ready to take action. But I don't have a quote to take action.
So we'll take it back up when we have closed.
So, and to be clear, just 30 plus one based on the advice. I mean, if I could get a vote, I would do not to exceed, but I don't think I will, so.
So just to speak on the numbers that we provided, I think the confusion was we didn't realize how quickly you could get a new handle, as far as, because X2 it was, you send it in for warranty and months later you get one back, so.
Yeah, operationally, chief and lieutenant, I think 30 would do it, right?
Yeah.
So you want a quote for 30, which includes 1 to 3.
Yeah.
With the current bundle package presented right now, the training, train-the-trainer training and everything.
I think that puts us there. Is it for you, Michael? Are there further questions?
I mean, it's what you want, so you tell him what you want, and then he'll give you the price, so.
Yeah.
Listening to the chief just now, and train the trainer was not in one.
They're taking,
No, Mr. Cruz, I thought just said the trainer was not in one.
The training,
Yeah, that's not,
I think it is.
they're taking that out of their training budget.
Right. We're sending them to the training on our own
No,
prior to.
That's what
The
Lieutenant
chief-
Dupuy said.
Right. I can clarify this really quick. The training instructor school we'd be taking out of our training line. The in the bundle is the yearly training for the trainers to just recertify to continue to be instructors.
The recurrent training.
So.
Correct.
See, train the trainer is not in, but
Mr.
so in other
Cruz,
words, you're not gonna, if we bought that bundle today, they would not pay for the training for your offices in 2 off.
Mr. Cruz, that's in that bundle, correct? The latest one you sent me?
Yes, sir. And frankly, I have no problem using some of my discretionary discount to put that on there because I realize, the lengths, we are up against that time crunch with the X2. So I have no problem including that at no cost. So that way, if you want to add more trainers down the road, that would be an option. The voucher is good for, it has no life limit on it, has no expiration date. So I'd be able to add that to the account free of charge so that if you want to get more trainers, if a trainer leaves the department at some point, you'll be able to go ahead and join a class free of charge.
So it sounds like we have everything put together, quote, have a discussion for next meeting. We don't have what it takes to do it today. Okay. You agree with that?
I just want to be clear that way when I go back to the office and email Mr. Cruz, we're good on the latest contract of 33, changing the number down to 30. With everything else that's included.
Well, sir, I don't.
30 gives us one extra free
30
spare.
plus 1.
30 plus 1.
Let's see where we go. Go for it. That's fine.
Well, I understand
I understand.
Bill's point, but I also see that I prolong it for the phones. Okay. To me, we need to get it going, especially with a 4-month lead time. We're already talking September for escape fruition.
Yeah, 4-month lead time is perfect for us because if on December 15th, you sign a purchase agreement with Axon Taser to buy X7s. That puts that program into the spring of 25. So we encumber the money. It pushes that deadline back so that we can push a 10-year window back. And I mean, that all works out perfect. So but buying them today, even next month and whatnot, you're pushing the window of the 10-year window ahead, There's gonna be a future commission and a future sheriff having to deal with it.
All right. I think you've got what you need from this what we want.
So I'm just gonna, after the meeting today, I'll go back and email Mr. Cruz, request a quote for 30. It'll include the 30 plus 1, am I correct there?
Yes, and then some of the other stuff that you talked about. Some discretionary.
Some discretionary. Clear? That's fine. All right, so we're done with that.
So would you rather have a motion that says that, or we're okay?
I think we're good. All right,
Thank you,
now we need
Mr.
our permission to purchase.
This next purchase, are you gonna represent the department on this next purchase? The launcher?
The launchers, yes.
I'm asking that perhaps that we avoid the word shotgun and we use the word launcher.
Yes.
Shotgun makes the 40 caliber. This is not a 40 caliber shotgun. This is a 40 caliber launcher. And I would prefer that so that we absolutely know what we're talking about, that we talk about this 40 caliber launcher. Even the material from defense technology, whatnot, nowhere in here doesn't say shotgun. So just a,
Well,
pet peeve if you want, but
if I were to make a motion, I would use the word launcher.
go ahead and make your motion, Paul.
Okay, I'm gonna move to approve the purchase of 2 Penn Arms 40 millimeter launchers from Single Source Whitmere Public Safety Group for the sum of $2,598 to be paid for from ARPA funds as requested.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Request permission to advertise for a new non-budgetary equipment position.
Did you have a meeting last week or with the state police again?
No, that meeting was canceled because of the
And
major stepmother passed away.
Oh,
And I got an email from Lieutenant Johnson this morning. I'm gonna try to get one 14th, 15th, or 17th.
because my comment is that we shouldn't be taking any action on this until we know what this arrangement is going to be between the state police and the sheriff's department. That's the whole purpose of adding staff to the sheriff's department, is that if the sheriff is left to handle the whole county himself without any help from the sheriff's department, that his argument is he needs more people. Until we know for sure what the sheriff, what the state police is going to do, we shouldn't be taking any action on that. And you heard Lieutenant Johnson here 2 weeks ago say that he wasn't going to pull out of the county. It's just what exactly arrangement that he's going to, under what arrangement he's going to provide service is still dependent on what agreement they can hammer between the two of them. So I'd suggest we take no action on this today and wait for a report from the sheriff's department and the state police on their success or less success on the agreement.
If I may, commissioners, oh, I'm sorry. If I may, just speaking about the call sharing agreement, if you look back at the form that was provided last commissioners meeting, as far as calls for service, I believe that's the most objective way to be able to evaluate this. That form is with the continued call sharing. So it is our hope that we will reach an agreement to continue the call sharing. But even with continuing call sharing, that form, in looking at the calls for service, directly correlates a need or what prompted our request for this additional position. At the end of last year, as I'm sure you can recall with the budget meeting, once we got to full staff, we were asked to come back and request that additional position. So that is what we were doing. I also believe that, based on the calls for service, we are at the highest call volume per deputy dating back to, 2010. So 2010 and 2015 era. So with that being said, I think that even with the continued call sharing, it would only get worse, obviously, if we went away from that. But with the continued call sharing, we are still at that high call volume. We're seeing incidences where our requirement is we're taking on more of a burden as far as the reports and things like that. The things that are required now today for prosecution or things that we invest time in are much more extensive than they were 10 or 15 years ago. So with that being said, based on the last commissioners meeting, we're asked to meet and discuss possible funding options for that position. And so myself, Administrator Crooker and Finance Director C's had that opportunity. And that's why I had prepared that document at your request last commissioners meeting.
Also, that if I remember correctly from budgeting meetings, when we talked about what we would do, this would help facilitate some of the town contracts that we're not able to fulfill now. That's still the case. Correct. This isn't just for state police issue.
Correct. That is the case. So this additional position would allow us to do a few things. One, it would allow us to fill out our staffing and our sections a little bit more. It would allow us, quite frankly, on the flip side of that would then allow us to meet our contract obligations and be better staffed, both to handle the calls for service each day, but also in situations where, somebody might be out on medical leave, somebody might be out on paternity leave, somebody might be at the academy, somebody might be away for training. So it certainly mitigates the overtime expenses that we are incurring due to those things, where we don't necessarily have that extra body. That would certainly have an impact on the budget in that sense as well. But it would have a direct impact on our overtime expenses and our ability to fulfill our contract obligations with those towns as well.
Okay, so another one of my questions is, what you're asking is to go, it sounds like you have a candidate, but you would still be going through the regular process. This isn't about hiring a candidate. This is about advertising for an open position.
You're correct. We're asking permission to advertise for this position, at which point in the near future, we'd evaluate our candidates, to see, you know, if there's any additional candidates that have interest or any, candidates that might be more qualified. We'd come back to you, with a name. I mean, at this time, we do, as I had outlined, we do have an individual in mind. So, you know, I come to you saying that we're not just looking to advertise this position with no idea whether or not we'd be able to fill it. I'm very confident we'd be able to fill it, as I've outlined, but obviously we'd look at all our options.
Okay, now, regarding option 1 and 2, in reading your memo, option 2 sounds more promising than option 1. Is that your contention, and Michael, is that your feeling also? I mean, that's the gist I get from reading this memo.
So, you say that again, just so I make sure.
So there's 2 options outlined in Lieutenant Dupuy's memo. So there's option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is, MDEA, the Department 46, and then option 2 is, I don't know, it sounds like option 2 makes more sense. Is that your feeling, Lieutenant? You're the one who wrote this.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to meet with them, like I had mentioned. I think that the option 1, I think, is the easiest, sure thing to say the funding is there. Option 2, there's a little bit of a caveat to that as far as what our ability to utilize those G accounts for a potential buyout would look like. So with that being said, I think, you know, we have the potential, I believe, to be able to use those G accounts, but it's not a sure thing as of this very second. Administrator Crooker was going to be looking into that. So there are a couple different options on the table in which we could fund it. I think option 1 might be the cleanest way to do that. But I think Administrator Crooker could obviously maybe touch on that specific. But ultimately, it would be up to your discretion of where you'd like to pull that funding from. I basically wanted to meet with them to see what our options were, where we had the funding, and present those to you.
Well, wait a minute. Option 1 is tapping into a fund that's supposed to be 100% reimbursed by NDEA.
Exactly.
That money is not there. That money is only there if we hire a supervisor, put him in there, and the state reimburses that pay. So this is not money. This account was not supposed to affect the budget, the amount we raised by taxation. This was supposed to be fully reimbursed.
That's why I don't like option 1.
Well, the same thing is true with 2. Town contracts are in the budget as a reimbursable. Those are 100% reimbursed by the town. That is not money raised by taxation. That is money that's supposed to be reimbursed. So if you use that for something other than a town contract and you don't get reimbursed, you're talking about using money that wasn't raised by the taxes, but by taxation, and exceeds the budget.
Well, that's why I was asking my question about town contracts.
That's the same as NDEA. Those are both accounts that need to be reimbursed by the people you're providing the service to. So if you don't provide them for their intended, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, if you adhere to that philosophy, he's not incorrect. The issue you have then is you basically have your answer in that you have no money to pay for a position. You never did, because it was never part of the budget. And there's no other, unless you want to take community benefit funds and take money out of there, you have no other funds that haven't been budgeted for a specific purpose. And when he talked about the general ledger accounts, what I'm talking about with that is when I read the statutes, and I thought this before, but it was kind of put to the side because business in the past has been, if you needed to transfer out of one of those to pay for something else, you did that. The way I read the statute, I don't think that's allowed either. I mean, but I'm not an attorney, as I've said to you many times. Our attorney was on vacation, so I couldn't confirm it. So I couldn't suggest to them or you today to say you could take some reserve account funds and transfer them in there to pay for a deputy need.
So that would be
So-
like taking capital improvement money and paying an officer, right? Is that what that's now?
And that would be, or paying for a portion of his, like, if that officer did have a buyout, paying for a portion of that, like you recently did with the other position. So you don't have, there's no magical pot of money here. It's either, did you not spend money somewhere that you could spend somewhere else? And yes, you will overdraft. There's no way around that. The only thing you could potentially do is be able to factor in this position as I understand it, and this is getting into scheduling and their people now, but reducing, applying it to Department 12, but putting that new deputy specifically on with covering all time available to contracts and not paying out of overtime like they're having to pay right now, and potentially making up for that savings from the overtime budget that they did. But the reality is you don't have a magic pot of money. There never was, which is why, unfortunately, this should have been dealt with during the budget process, if you really wanted to fund a position. Now, if you have something in mind that I'm not aware of, tell me. But the only other places that I know that we have something that's not either budgetary tied or potentially a reserve account tied, which again, I would advise today, I'm not so sure you have the ability to spend something on something that's been put in reserve, and that's not for the designated purpose of the reserve, which was also part of the budgetary process originally at some point in time, obviously. So I don't have an answer for you that if you're looking for a one-for-one thing in the budget, because the only other place you can take it from is basically saying, we know we're not going to spend money here in our expense line. That's not contingent upon a revenue. And we can take it from that, but do you have enough? I mean, when we talked about looking at the expense accounts in the sheriff's departments, 4 departments, whatever, there's no other line items there that could come up with that amount of money.
Well, that's what bothered me about the budget process is when we
You
said,
would be
you know,
essentially
we'll
overdraft.
Yeah, when we said, you know, we'll, I don't remember the exactly how it was stated, but, you know, when you get up to full staff, we'll find a way to pay for it. I was worried about how to pay for it, still.
And to a degree, the argument is just like when we talk about other department heads coming in and saying, I know I'm gonna overdraw on this. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, and then we'll make up for it somewhere in the budget at the end. Well, I mean, technically, that doesn't really help, again, unless you have areas where you don't spend the money.
So,
And that's what you gotta look at. Is there places you can cut that are expense line items that were raised as part of taxes? Again, using this philosophy of not touching the revenue side of it and not having the offset, then that's what you'd have to look at. and see
Well,
is it-
2 things. First of all, if you go back and listen to the budget period, and we talked about this, what we said was, is that we're going to fund X number of deputies. And if you get fully funded, you come back and talk to us about additional deputies. There was no promise to give them additional deputies. So that's the first thing. And second of all, if you want to hire a deputy today, with everything else required for that deputy, please don't give you. But I'm sorry, I did not mean to throw it. The time you pay your buyout, you pay his wages and fringes for the rest of the year, you give him all the equipment that we have decided to give all these people. In 2024 alone, you're talking $150,000. Cruiser, laptop, printers.
well, that's been addressed by, a lot of that's been addressed by Lieutenant Dupuy in this.
Correct.
memo.
So yeah, and as I had mentioned last meeting, that's certainly something that in order to, if you guys were willing to approve this, in order to mitigate the cost, we would pull a spare cruiser. We would pay for the equipment out of our current budget line. I again, as Administrator Crooker had outlined, I don't think we have a magic pot of money either. So that's why I wanted to look at the solutions that we had, and come to you with the most cost mitigating proposal. So I'm not asking for an additional cruiser right now. I'm not asking for you guys to fund the equipment. We will take that out of our current budget. Basically, what we're looking to find funds for was the wages and fringe benefits.
I hope if they're going to take it out of their budget, they do better this year than last. They were $190,000 over their expenditure budget for 2023. And I say that's not acceptable. Nevertheless,
Commissioners, if I may, in regards to that budget, obviously the some of the people that had an impact on that budget are no longer here. That's a check that was written for Lieutenant Archer and Chief Deputy Birch and I, and that unfortunately we're forced to cash. So with that being said, we are looking at it closely. I can attest to you that our budget so far this year, as far as wages go and overtime, it's on the high end. It looks like it is going to trend over again, and because of minimum staffing, the people that we have in the academy, medical leave, etc. So with that being said, that's why this additional position would certainly have a benefit. It would have a benefit to mitigate those overtime expenses and allow us that extra body. It would also allow us the benefit of fulfilling some of these contract obligations that we haven't been able to do so because people have been out. So, we are looking at, as far as the budget is tracking for overtime expenses and things like that, that it is tracking over. And we're doing everything we can to try to mitigate that. Unfortunately, as far as minimum staffing, we have to have deputies out there to be able to answer the call when somebody calls. So with that being said, this additional position would help mitigate those overtime expenses that we've been forced to pay out thus far this year.
But we'd incur another expense, so. I guess my question is, because we can't hit the budget, and the money's not there. Are we foregoing, I don't have the budget in front of me, but are we foregoing, Department 12 revenue because we're a person short?
We are. We haven't been able to fulfill those contract obligations. So obviously, if we aren't able to fulfill those, then that's not money being billed out and receiving that revenue. So, I mean,
Spending it. So that's where the wash comes in theory.
But in the budget, did we have revenue? Were we showing revenues from those lines? We were.
Yeah.
So that's one reason we're not.
It's basically the same thing as he said with Department 46, as Commissioner Clark said. It's the same concept in that you've got the set contract, you've got it for so many hours. And then under the original agreements, we provide that, but obviously because of staffing issues and not having people committed where they historically have been able to say, this deputy is doing this contract, they've had to fill those positions with whoever's available. And that sometimes has meant, if I understand our conversation last week, that they haven't been able to put the required hours in, correct?
Well, so right now what we're doing is just offering people as an overtime, like whenever you want to work one, because we literally can't staff those contracts because we're just so short.
So the only way there would be option 2, as I understand it from Lieutenant Dupree's memo here, is that the only way we'd realize income is if we were able to fulfill those contracts. Okay, so
correct.
we would have to make this position, for it to work, this position has to facilitate that. There's no question. Otherwise, there's no way to pay for it.
One would assume you'd almost have to commit that person to contracts in that department.
And is that what your intention was?
With this additional position, we would, with our current schedule, we would gain 15 additional worked shifts out of a 28-day cycle. So I would anticipate a 15 shifts out of 28 days to be contract work shifts, where the county would then in return see a revenue on that side of it. So yes, this position would allow us to fulfill contract obligations to that effect, at least 15 of those shifts. Right now, currently, we have 4 shifts, I believe, a week with Tremont and 3 with Stonington. So that's 7 out of a 28-day cycle. You're talking, well, 28 shifts. So even with this additional position, it would certainly help impact that. Yes, there's on the flip side of that, there's 28 contract shifts in a 28-day cycle, and that deputy would only work 15 shifts. So it would certainly help alleviate that, yes. But can I say that we'd be able to meet our contract obligations 100%? I wouldn't be able to make that commitment to you at this time. That likely, I do suspect that will change due to one of our deputies graduating the academy the week after next. So that will allow us or help us in doing that. But this deputy would directly affect our ability to meet some of those contract obligations.
So with 15,
If you believe that, they're gonna put all 15 days into the contracts and whatnot, I mean, there's gonna be other priorities, there's gonna be other situations, and you're not gonna get 15 days out of this guy.
well, that's what I'm worried about is
No,
because
no.
otherwise it doesn't take.
And nobody-
That's my.
And nobody's checking, nobody's going to looking, nobody's going to understand how to even see whether or not.
We're gonna run out of money.
Well, I can say right now that we have been able, with the staffing, we have been able to cover our road shifts for slot coverages, because obviously that takes a priority over a specific town contract. So as staffing is now, we've been able to do that, but we have not been able to fill our town contracts. So with this additional position, our staffing as far as being able to provide coverage for those slots, that wouldn't change. We're able to do that currently right now, but what we're not able to do is meet those contract obligations. So this would have a impact on that.
And he's got a deputy coming in the academy next month that will be available to come back into town contracts, and so that's gonna be relief to those. So it's not that they're not gonna do anything, they're gonna have relief by virtue of this deputy getting out of the academy. So every month we put this off means we need less money to get to the end of the year, which means it may help us in determining where that money is going to come from. Right now, we're talking 8 months, that's a lot of money. But
Well,
if we talk about this in August, we're talking 4 months. And so
He's talking about 5 or 6 months here.
Correct. From what I had proposed in that memo, it wouldn't be a start. We wouldn't even be looking at a start date until after July 1st, as Commissioner Wambacher had suggested in the last meeting. So we would not be looking to staff a position immediately this second. We're looking for the approval for the position and an approval to advertise for it, with the understanding that this position would not be staffed until after July 1st.
Well, it says July 20th.
That is that individual that I had in mind. That's in order to have the buyout drop and save additional money. That's why we had proposed that July 20th.
When we did the new wind community benefits, how many years will it take before we start getting?
And it'll be probably 2 or 3 anyway.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
And the reality again with those, they gotta be in the UT. I mean,
it's on TIF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I meant the community
Even if
benefits.
they got community benefits, yeah, I mean, that'll probably be a couple of years out anyway.
We need, I'm sorry, I missed the question.
So he was asking about
How
the
soon we get
solar.
the
tip.
solar.
Solar.
That's still new as a
Not
solar.
the current one.
To me, it's whatever happens this year, whenever it happens, it's probably just gonna have to come out of community benefits.
Well, that's my next question.
Well, remember, gentlemen, that we have a commitment to EMA to use community benefits money to purchase, put towards the construction of the EOC building. 25% of that $2 million we've got to come up with. You can't use ARPA funds. So you're gonna need a minimum of $500,000 for $2 million building out of that CBA. That's the only place that money can come from. So be careful how you spend that because you already committed.
And we have a deputy out on medical leave, right?
Correct. Oh, she's currently on light duty. Yes. Which she had a setback, so I mean, it's looking like July, I think, or earliest. July, August, yeah.
So you have one in the academy, one on, and then everybody else is working.
That is correct, Commissioner. Everybody else is working, not to get into her medical issues or information, but I don't expect, after my most recent conversation with her, I don't expect to see her back until towards the end, if not after summer, due to some medical setbacks and things like that. I guess the last thing that I would just draw your attention to is the most, what I believe to be objective thing is just, I refer back to that calls for service number. If we are arguing about positions and the need, even with everybody working, obviously those calls for service per deputy would be higher this year with our staffing issues that we have had. But even with everybody working, that's the most objective number to illustrate that, we could certainly have or receive a benefit of having that additional deputy. We're handling the most calls for service per deputy since, 10 years ago.
And that's the problem with raw data, is that it doesn't really reflect the picture. Because for 2023, the raw data showed that in a 10-hour shift, each deputy had on the average 2.5 calls per shift. That's less than one call every 3 hours. Well, you can't use that. That doesn't fit. But nevertheless, that is the data. And so when you talk about clearly just the numbers, there's a lot more to what staffing level is really determined by. And there's a lot of factors in there, and some of it, more of it is subjective, objective.
Well, plus, what's weighing on me also is that we have communities that are saying we need help. And, that's the other part that's pressing. I mean, I understand this, they're really operating with -2 folks right now. Which is not sustainable. In an apartment this size, I don't think. But it's how to pay for it. If the contract side of it for me doesn't come to fruition, then this would have to come out of community benefits. We talked about that during the budgeting process also.
What's the balance in the community benefits right now?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I can have it for you for next time.
All right, so I think, once again, we pumped it for another meeting. And we get a list, I want to see the community benefits projections, where we're at, when the money gets deposited in. And see what we've got obligated.
Well, that, and I think after this discussion, we probably can get a better idea of what we'd realize from community, from town contracts. Because it doesn't sound like Lieutenant Dupuy is making a case that it can all come out of it. Is that fair?
What was that, Commissioner?
It doesn't sound like you're making the case that there would be enough income from town contracts to pay all of this.
So to touch on that, I believe there would be. The way that a town contract is billed currently is when a deputy is assigned to that contract, those hours are then in exchange billed back to the town. So by, to say that we have 28 contract shifts in a 28-day period, that's fine. But to say that this additional position would allow us to meet 15 of those shifts, well, those 15 would then in return be billed to the town contract. So this the notion of, you know, the the funds in the town contracts being able to pay for this position, I would say that is the case, because if you every shift that you work for the town contract, then you then get billed back, and that's how we build that revenue. So I would say that I believe that, you know, the ability to work these town contract shifts, that this additional position would allow us, that we currently don't have this moment. I do believe that you would see that revenue come back through, because we'd be billing the towns for those hours.
So 15 hours is what you're stating.
15 shifts.
15 shifts, sorry. 15 shifts is what you're stating this would allow you to do. And the question is, does 15 shifts pay for this?
And my answer would be yes, because every shift that you work in a town contract then gets billed back to that town.
But does that pay this
How
now?
how many number of shifts is would the officer be?
Because you're saying the total cost is,
So I think there's confusion. We don't have to specifically put this person in a contract, because the contract is billed out the same no matter who's there.
that's right.
Right, so we're just using this to offset our schedule in a way that we can put somebody in a contract, not specifically this person. And like you said, they're billed out at a certain hourly rate when you invoice the towns. So, you know,
Right.
town has a specific amount that they pay hourly to have somebody in there. And, you know, Tremont is a 7.5 hour contract, so they're paying a certain amount for the 7.5 hours. And then Stonington is an 8 hour contract, and they pay, you know, it's not the same, it's a different contract, obviously, but they still pay an hourly wage for that 8 hours.
But so what you're saying is that basically this is a $50,000 nut that's gonna be covered somehow. Right? It's 33 in wages and benefits plus the buyout. So that's $50,000. So the question for me is, I understand, Lieutenant Archer, you're saying at different rates, and that's why I can't figure it out. But does 15 shifts generate $50,000?
So to touch on that, I believe the 15 shifts would cover the wages and fringe benefits that I would expect. What I don't suspect, and I may be wrong on this, but what I don't suspect, I'd err on the side of caution, and say that I don't know if it would go as far to say that it would cover the buyout, that 17,000 and some change, which is why I had illustrated some options of where we could pull that money from.
So just to clarify, right now, it's not, and that's kind of what I understood, I just want to make sure. It's not like a one-to-one thing, so if you got a deputy coming in at $29 an hour, but the contract only says $25 an hour, you can only bill the $25 an hour. Or can
So
you
the
bill?
contract is much higher than that.
Well, and I assume it would be, but I mean,
So
just,
it's more beneficial to have somebody assigned to that contract that makes a lesser dollar amount,
Yeah.
because then you're increasing the amount you're getting back.
that you get back, but you
Right.
can only bill whatever the actual contract amount is. So if the deputy makes more, then the
Which will
county,
never be the case.
all right, because that would be the next question is that, again, from a budgetary standpoint, if they had a bunch of people that have been paying overtime, but only been able to build so much.
So
I
the
mean,
contract
you have
actually
to look at that.
includes some overtime,
Yeah.
so the hourly rate is based on if we have to work an overtime shift, we're not gonna get a negative if we have to do that.
Well, and that's why they're going backwards. That's
Right.
the.
Right.
You're having to fulfill it with an overtime shift, so instead of making.
Well, and that's why I wanted to make sure though, I mean, I didn't want to have you be under this premise that you're going down this path, but you've already depleted a whole bunch of other stuff over here that could be
So I'm gonna
counted for.
state where I am. I am for this position. I'm for this position with a couple caveats. One is that we, you know, that it generates enough income to pay for it. And that there is enough money, community benefits to help with the buyout if needed. So I think given that, then I could make a motion to advertise for that. I think we have that yet. And Mike was sort of made the case that we don't quite have it closed.
Well, I mean, the community benefit thing is something that we didn't look at because.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we'd have to pull those numbers to tell
Yeah.
you what you could get. The other resources in terms of the general ledger reserve accounts, I mean, in 2 weeks, I'd have an answer to that too. So there may be some other smaller amounts. And in terms of then the actual revenues and expenses on whether we pay for itself, I mean, realistically, yes, we probably would have to go back and make sure, but if based on what they're saying, in theory, that wouldn't be an issue. But I mean, I haven't run any numbers. I don't think any of us really sat down and ran those numbers specific to what you're asking right now. But
Yeah, well, where I am uncomfortable in the part that we talk about in option 2 is using what you call them reserve accounts, I call it a capital expenditure account. I am somewhat uncomfortable with that because that's gonna cause a problem when we bump up against the reason we raised the capital.
The problem I have with your position, Paul, is you're starting from the premise that they absolutely need this deputy. I think that is the biggest problem we have, is that I think we should take pause on whether or not. Now, Lieutenant told us he had 16 or something like that, new troopers coming. Now, it's probably never gonna happen, but what if he came back and said, well, I got 5 new troopers in this district, I would take half the county starting tomorrow forever.
Can I just speak to that?
No. I'm
Well,
just saying
we just were
hypothetically, but I
operating
have
on the
floor,
premise that
please. I have the
Mr.
floor.
Johnson is saying he's hopeful that he'll have this.
All right,
My point is that there could be a number of issues here that come to light that we should understand before we make the determination that they need more people. That is forever. That is forever. You're not gonna make a $60,000 contribution today for the budget and that's it, because this now turns into 100,000 plus every year forever.
Yeah.
so my only thing is though, so if they're not, why aren't we fulfilling all the contracts we have?
Because we don't have a
We don't
person.
have enough people. So if we don't have enough people to fulfill the contracts inside the towns, how is it that we don't need to hire some? That's right.
You have somebody at the academy, you have somebody that is on leave and whatnot, and if your work gets reduced because of the contribution made by the state police, then you have more people you can free up to do contracts.
Yeah,
It's a management.
I mean, I think we can put it in the state police giving what they've ever given before.
They still want to meet
I
and
know.
talk, and let's hear what they
So,
have to
so the
say.
issue with the state police is Mr. Johnson is a great salesman. He's operating on the hopes that he's gonna have the staff to put in Hancock County, which the recent graduates, none of them live in Hancock County. There's 3 of them. One lives in Monson, one lives in Holden, the other one lives in Washington County somewhere. And he came up here and he gave a great speech on, we're hopeful, but the truth is the state police is not willing to make any concessions as to what their coverage is being. We've offered them several options in regards to that, and they continue to kick the can down the road, and then they really, undermine our ability to try to get more staff because they're coming in there just selling this thing to you, right? So you can't operate under the premise of we're hopeful, because hopeful is not going to provide a service to the citizens of Hancock County. It's just not going to. You can't operate that way. You have to provide them a service. And what you have to provide them service on is something that you know. Right now, we know the state police is not willing to make a concession on their schedule to help us out.
The last thing I have to say is that every time you give them another person, there's less and less incentive to have an agreement with the state police. If they get enough people so they can handle the whole county, why do they need the state police? Why would they even try to make an effort to resolve agreement? So.
Well, what Lieutenant Johnson did say was that we wouldn't have to increase our staff to cover their agreement. So to me, that's why, for me, that's sort of outside this.
Well, the fact pattern is the state police is operating more towards just being a specialty-based agency. And that is what you're seeing across the state. They're pulling out of call sharing agreements all across the state, and they're focusing more on specialty efforts, so that they're removing people from the road answering calls, and they're just putting them, like, designating them to like the TAC team. So that is a fact pattern across the state, like I said. You know, I have the utmost respect for Lieutenant Johnston, but I just really think he undermined this whole conversation with what he came and spoke about, because, like I said, he's just operating under the hopes that he's gonna have more staff when he really can't guarantee it.
Well, for me, it's outside, because I'm looking at, just from, the couple communities that we haven't spoken the last meeting. I think we need to work on fulfilling some of these town contracts, because we're giving up income and we're giving up service. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And for me, the state police piece is almost outside of this. Lieutenant Dupuis sort of touched on that, saying that wasn't really a consideration here. I don't mean that.
As of right now,
I think that's what he said.
they're covering 1/3. That's all their obligation is 1/3 of the county.
And if I may, I believe what Commissioner Parity is touching on is that everything that I've provided you is with call sharing. We would be in a worse position without it. We have the utmost interest in continuing call sharing if we can reach an agreement that's equitable and beneficial for both agencies. But I don't want to put us in a worse position. This is the numbers, and everything that has been provided to you is with call sharing. So even with call sharing, these are what we're seeing for calls for service. This is how it would benefit us with the town contracts, like you guys have brought up, that they were here last meeting, speaking on their need and request for that coverage. This would allow us the ability to provide that additional service to them that, we have an obligation to do. So that this is everything that's been presented is with call sharing. This isn't a worst case scenario saying that we're pulling out of call sharing, we need this person. Everything that's been presented, all the numbers, is with the existing call sharing continuing.
When do you get deputy out of the academy again?
May 17th, he graduates. I'm going to be taking a few days off.
So he'll be here in June.
He'll be here at the end of the month.
And when that happens, when they are out of the academy, how is that going to affect our ability to fulfill the contracts as it stands right then?
So I can speak to that since I handle most of the scheduling. With that being said, that deputy will certainly increase our ability to provide some coverage. Yet again, though, the schedule that patrol works, they work 15 out of 28-day cycle. So that additional deputy would allow us to fulfill some contract shifts that we have not been able to. We still would not be able to meet the contract obligations to their fullest or to 100%, where I'm hopeful that this additional position would allow us to meet those obligations. So that deputy, the graduate in the academy, will certainly improve our position to some degree, but not really only half of our contract obligation is what we would be looking at.
If you listen to that, the new deputy is going to handle 15 shifts. It's going to cover 15 shifts, but the deputy getting out of the academy is not going to handle 15 shifts.
That's not what he said.
I just said that they will handle 15 shifts. So that's why I'm saying is that our contract obligation is 28 shifts out of a 28-day cycle. This new deputy working 15 shifts out of a 28-day cycle, the same as the deputy graduating the academy. They all work 15 shifts out of a 28-day cycle. So that additional deputy that is graduating the academy will improve our ability to cover some contract shifts for these towns, but it will not allow us to meet those obligations to the fullest extent or 100%. It will only allow us to do approximately half of our contract obligations. So that's why with this additional position, it would allow us to meet our contract obligations.
So I'd hate the fact that I don't really understand how it all works with the shifts and everything, so I apologize, but so how many shifts are you short? If we could do the contracts 100%, can you tell me that number? What was
Yeah,
it?
so right now we have 28 shifts out of 4 weeks. So out of a 28-day cycle, 4 weeks, we have 28 contract shifts that that's our obligation with the towns of Tremont and the town of Stonington. So if you have a deputy that works 15 shifts out of a 28-day cycle, we'll just say just about half, just one shift over. So if that deputy graduating the academy effectively will allow us to meet approximately half of our contract obligations, where this additional deputy would hopefully allow us to meet that full contract obligations that these towns are requesting coverage for.
Right
I don't
now,
know if that answers your question.
but right now you're covering some of the shifts, right? For the contract.
Right now, so
Yeah.
like right now, due to staffing, I believe there was one shift I was able to fill this week, 1 or 2 shifts for the contract towns. Unfortunately, we just simply, due to the things that are out of our control, like the deputy at the academy, deputy on medical leave, and such, that pulls from our ability to fill those shifts. So this week, I believe there was only 2 shifts out of 7 that I was able to fill.
And again, we're putting those out as overtime. So anybody who wants to work a contract, we're literally letting them know, like, you can work this whenever you want. Just let us know, put it on the schedule. And, it's just, they're working so many other overtime details. These guys are just not wanting to work any extra. So,
Which is causing us to go backwards.
correct.
That's it. That's- So. Again, where I am. I just want to make sure that we have the ability to pay for it. And I support this.
So we still need,
We need 50,000.
so we have to have evidence that the new officer, at least the $33,000 of it would get paid by increased town contract. It's being fulfilled.
Hopefully more, but at minimum.
Yeah, so right now, just to speak on that again, I know it's been touched on, but our town contract, the way that works is when the deputy's there, like Lieutenant Archer touched on, 8 hours for Stonington, a shift they pay for 7.5 for Tremont. That is billed at a rate substantially higher than that officer. The reason that we do that is it makes it so that if a deputy works that shift as part of their normal schedule, the county sees a revenue side of it. Now, if that price point that we bill these town contracts at is set so that if we do a deputy has to work as an overtime shift, the county doesn't lose money. So every time a deputy works that shift as part of their regular schedule, the county sees a revenue stream from it. So that's why also, by these additional positions and be able to meet that contract obligations, the county would be seeing a revenue on these 15 shifts that this deputy would be working theoretically.
Well, and plus there needs to be some built, I'm sure there's some built in for the capital expenses associated. That's probably.
There is.
Yeah. So my position hasn't changed. I don't know, John.
I don't have a problem with doing it. So I don't have any problem. I don't think there's any issue that there's gonna be $17,214 in community benefits funds to take care of it.
Well, and that's if this. That's just the example he was using, because we don't know who the candidate is, you haven't advertised it yet. But that, you were using this as an example.
That is the candidate that we had interviewed for this last position that we would like to hire. However, we would evaluate and look at all our options when we advertise it.
So I think we could go out to advertise. As long as we feel that's gonna get covered, that 33 is gonna get covered.
Well, yeah. Just trying to figure out how to word this, because it's not really option one or option two, it's, you're representing that it would pay for it, that there would be funds there.
So right now, currently looking at our budget, yes, there are funds there that we would be able to draw on to cover that amount. We would see a return on some revenue for some of those for those shifts worked as well. So right now, the funds, at least for the wages and fringe benefits, is there. We'd be looking at obviously the buyout, that 17,000.
But that's with the understanding, correct, that that new person is gonna be basically doing town contracts, right? I mean, is that,
Well,
Correct.
they'll give us the
Yeah,
option
but
to
if-
fulfill more contracts. So it's
Correct.
not-
So
It's just not specifically.
because any hour
designated.
that they don't work that though, the county's gotta pay for that in some other way. So I mean,
correct. So
just trying to keep it real for everybody that, you know, if they're not in the shift for Department 12, then they're cutting into the tax dollars or other accounts that you have.
right. And right now, scheduling wise, if I can just touch on that so that you guys have an understanding. I don't assign a specific person to all contract shifts. You know, there's due to where they are geographically, there's nobody that lives in those towns and there's nobody that wants to work their entire year in a town. So what I currently do is that would allow us 15 shifts. So any given week, a specific deputy would work, 1-2 contract shifts, so that everybody has a rotation through them and not just one person being burnt out from specifically being assigned to a contract every day they work. So this additional position would be 15 shifts that I can now transfer. I mean, this person would, in theory, they still work contract shifts. It just wouldn't be what they do every single day. The other days where they might be covering a slot, that person that is now covering that slot would then work a contract shift. So it would be effectively 15 shifts that we could dedicate to a contract. It just wouldn't be necessarily all worked by this one specific deputy, if that makes any sense.
Admit to me, if we do this new officer and the person comes out of the academy, then we're gonna have all the shifts filled for our town contracts every week.
That is my hope.
And what would stop us from being able to do it?
The only thing that would stop us from being able to do that is in instances where multiple people may take a vacation, or if we have multiple people that are on medical leave, or in some years, in recent years, if we have deputies that are involved in a critical incident, or a shooting or something like that, where we have multiple people out on leave, that may affect that. But absent, something where multiple people go down, we should be able to meet those contract obligations.
So I want an assurance from you that you understand that the reason why Paul and I are supporting it is the town contracts need to get fulfilled. And we need to do everything in your power to make sure those get filled, since we've made an obligation to the towns. And we're also extending ourselves out financially here to make sure it happens.
So
Yes.
I'm gonna make this motion, which I think accomplishes that. I might need a little help. Move to authorize the sheriff to advertise for a new patrol position with the funds to pay for the new position funded using Department 12 revenues as represented by Lieutenant Dupree. So Department 12, that's 10 contracts.
Correct.
And with any potential buyout of up to 17,500 being charged to the community benefits account as requested, so that's up to 17,500 for a buyout. So that's my motion, and then I'll outline a couple words I have.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so this is a big deal because what I'm worried about is what happens at budget time. You know, we hit last year with a what? 16 plus budget. I'm not sure we can afford to keep doing that. In fact, I'm not sure, I'm positive we can't afford to keep doing that. So I don't know where that leaves us, but there are some issues in these communities that came to us. I'm hearing it, and I hope that this solves some of those concerns. If it doesn't, then, in the future, we might be looking at staff reductions. I hope not, but, that's the risk we're taking here. Because I'm worried about affording this, because, yeah, you're gonna, a lot of this is, like cruisers, and you're cutting down a spare by doing this, but, you're cutting down a spare. We're not gonna be able to have, we're not going to be able to afford, to put that spare back in, because that's huge expense here. So this is, I agree with it, I made the motion, but this is a serious budgetary concern moving forward.
Anything else to say, Jason? They make a decision. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Boy, that's a long time to sit. Told you air conditioner's running.
Yeah, it's getting pretty warm in here. Have a good day.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Anything to add to the report?
No.
I'm gonna move to accept and file the maintenance monthly report.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Morning, gentlemen. Sheriff's Office entrance update. If you've seen, but they've removed all of the windows in the tower and the storefront and those areas for weather. The windows are on the way, being manufactured. And they're saying 10 days.
So you can be without windows at all for 10 days?
Yeah, they're plugged in.
Yep.
They're plugged in. It's just a little dark in those areas.
Wow.
And we're happy to see some action down there. And hopefully we'll get this wrapped up here
Big thing is that,
sooner rather than
big
later.
thing is that big thing that's.
Oh, yeah, we do have the lift,
The what?
100-foot lift that they find necessary because they have to reach out so far
that lift was for the, probably the sheriff.
for the windows, yeah,
Okay.
and the upper floors.
Seemed-
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so,
Didn't seem to know what that was for. I thought it would be.
yeah, the old jail, thankfully, the workmen are off for 2 weeks. I think the foreman is on vacation, or had something going on. And they had other work to finish up, and they'll be back next week or a week after. Yeah, they are, my estimation, about a third done.
Do you know when they do the south side of the building facing the library, if they going to remove the pillars?
Oh, the poles that we installed? No, they don't plan on. They're
Why
gonna
were,
remove the netting,
why were you leaving the poles?
I think, because they don't want to deal with them.
Whose responsibility is it?
It would be the responsibility of the historical society. Once that restoration is made, I assume they'll cut them off the base.
When you say pole, what's holding up the netting?
Yeah, those big steel,
Remember, that's on our property.
It is,
Sometimes
yeah.
their problem. That's all our problem.
And is it impeding? They're saying no, that they take the netting down.
We used to be able to park when they put those up.
So it's a, who's in parking?
If we-
Yeah, we have lost.
We've lost parking because of.
Could we ask them to remove them if they're not serving? Once that renovation is done, yeah, they'll be removed.
When you say renovation, it's the exterior renovation.
Yes, once they get that south wall complete. They'll be saying,
That was my question.
we'll be saying to the Historical Society, get rid of these.
What's your ARPA request?
ARPA request, well, I'm wondering, but we've been through our, my Department 6 requests to the commission, and a lot of it was well received, some not. I'm wondering at what point do I make a request? For instance, what I'd like to do immediately, maybe next meeting, is go out for, or prepare an RFP and solicit cost for pavement.
Also,
Pavement. To start with, as we discussed with the upper lot, and then next year, the lower lot, where these guys are going.
I was kind of surprised that more department heads didn't get in here. I mean, I should better hurry up, get your request in before the sheriff's department spends it. So,
Yeah, I will. I'll do that. I do have these prioritized roughly, but that's where I'd like to begin. And if you're open to entertaining the request, I'd like to start making.
You talk about shades in the registry of deeds.
Yes,
Is that an expensive venture?
it is.
Like what? Tens of thousands?
Not tens of thousands, several thousands.
Those you gentlemen have noticed, people in there, they're torn. Somebody said that they've been there 40 years.
Somebody said that.
I think Julia, somebody that said they've been there 40 years. That would be a nice project to, at least the south windows.
Well, agreed. And they get tremendous amounts of sun there.
So
Very harsh.
when we went through this in that ARPA meeting, we agreed on these projects, right?
No. Some. I was,
We never turned down any of the projects. We just listened to the presentation. And
yeah,
I was expected to come back with a formal request and whatever the process is.
right. I did get some feedback though on like the fence, Foster's fence, which I've got Superior coming to just mend as much as they can at this time. And there was some resistance to the access control system. So what I've done is talk with Chuck and kind of gonna represent that as by a replacement for our low-grade cameras. Will request funds to upgrade. And that will be forthcoming as well.
But didn't we do an inventory of,
So we went through down specific projects, kind of outlined areas for funding, but you never told anybody specifically, yes, we'll fund this, or no, we won't fund this. It was,
I understand.
now it was basically, all right, you kind of went through the first phase, come back to us with some actual details, and then we'll talk about it. right?
It's what we did that day.
Yeah.
But these weren't approvals.
Oh, no, I'm
No,
not
certainly
saying, no, I'm not saying they're approvals. I just want to make sure
They
that,
they were on that list you discussed, that's probably the fairest way to say it. So
Yeah,
it's
they
not
were
like
on-
he's pulling additional things out of his hat that he
No.
didn't talk about
the point was the math work.
in there.
Yes.
So.
So that seems pretty simple.
So I think what Dennis is asking and what Michael is asking is, are you open to hearing proposals for these items?
Oh,
Right?
yeah, he
Yes.
wants to know, can I submit the proposals, which tentatively I said, I think that's your next step.
I agree.
But before he puts a lot into it, he wanted to talk.
It's like today, I mean, you should have come with specifications and asked us to approve.
Yeah, which I will. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would have expected.
Right. And also, there is also the matter of purchasing. So some of these items, like this paving, RFP makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
There are other expenses, like the gutters, are getting prices. And I'll gather as many prices from vendors that can get.
Talk to Mr. Competitive Bidding over here before you get too far afield.
Yeah.
Well, because an item that's like under $10,000, I think is more and locally sourced. The reasoning is there to say, we've got 3 prices, we'd like to give it to this guy.
Yeah.
If that's acceptable.
Well, yeah,
That's a violation of the bidding process.
So if it's required that I go out to bid for those, I'll do it either way, but I just want to do what's most effective.
Well, I mean, last meeting, we made a $2,700 purchase for the sheriff's department, well, bid. Looked back at sole source, so I mean,
oh, we,
yes, you did, you told them to come back this meeting with that long shirt. And either sole source or put it out to bid, and come back with sole source.
well, I didn't say out to bid, but
You follow the
consistent.
competitive bidding process. is what-
Follow the procedure. The purchasing policy. is what it says.
Yeah, okay, so well, either course we decide to take, I think each item that comes up, Michael and I will talk
Yeah,
about,
that's what
decide a course of action and bring it to you. And then if it's decided that an RFP is more appropriate, we'll do that. If there is a division of feeling regarding a particular project and the way it's being handled.
All right, so you want to start off with the parking lot. Hey,
That's what I think, I was like, yeah,
Are you gonna do all of it? You're gonna put it all of it?
I'm gonna put, yes, all of it, and the vendors that come, we're gonna tell them that this can be scheduled for, immediate, renovation, and the lower lot a year from now. And that's good. And I think that each vendor that we deal with will be able to handle it.
We'll contract this fall, or this winter with them before we,
Right,
so we lock in a wrap.
exactly my reason.
So, but as far as Michael, is it your contention that all these have to go?
So the state statute reference process they had, like up to 10,000, you could obtain quotes. This is saying anything about 2,500, based on the existing one that's here. So if you go on 100% with that, because we're gonna ask about the payroll system later too, just because we have the same thing, we're kind of operating under the past practices, which was, we know there's probably a handful of vendors that service payroll services for, especially for counties and municipalities. We go out and get the prices and come back to you with it. But I mean, if you read by the policy, then, I mean,
It basically says that for purchases, this one specifically, renovation or improvement of county building facilities required on the cost is expected to exceed 2,500. Or services or renovations or improvements, and then it talks about equipment, supplies, materials, same thing. So, I mean, there's, in the existing one that's in place right now, there's nothing else that says anything beyond it, just the 25.
So we need to fix it.
well, that's part of what I'm working on next, is to come back with a revised proposal consistent with,
That's what we talked about last.
but under the existing, no. Unless you tell us otherwise.
I'm not trying to throw up any hurdles. I'm just trying to make sure that, we're just not saying, hey, I'd like to look, so you give me a price and we'll do it.
Sure.
I don't think you want to do that anyway.
No,
So if we can show competitive pricing between 3 or 4 vendors that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Then,
Okay.
But that policy should reflect that. We
Right.
should,
So we should
yeah,
change the policy.
we should change policy to reflect that. 'Cause that,
Geez, that's just a quick fix, isn't it, Michael? Yeah, I mean, it's just adding some additional stuff in here. I mean, I say quick fix, but I mean, yes, I mean, getting language to add the, for lack of a better term, exceptions to competitive bidding. Then, yes. So hopefully by the next meeting, I can have that completed for you. If we can do that first thing, then everything else in the meeting would be what if that's passed immediately.
Got a field trip. So I think you have consensus on the 35.
Yeah.
The.
yeah, good. I think it's pretty clear that,
RFP.
yep, good there, so we'll see what changes the policy under those and then
Yeah,
proceed accordingly. Good, thank you. Of course, the last item is this change order from E.L. Shea. When they removed the windows, what they found was that the frames are integral, cut into the brick, and the wall underneath is not attached. And we really, yeah, it's one of the reasons that the walls themselves are not weather tight. And it needs to be addressed, it needs to be fixed. Because the materials we're using require a rigid frame for the window to be installed.
So he's got a 25,000 additional cost to cover that?
Yes, to do that.
Do you understand that, Paul?
Yep. So I'm gonna move to approve the change order proposal from E.L. Shea in the amount of $25,195 for the replacement of exterior walls, the elevator tower, with such funds to be paid for using ARPA funds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Good, thank you.
Good.
Do not. Accept and file our 60-monthly report as presented.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I had three proposals. Two of them are kind of interrelated. So the first one was to add a backup radio system, which is a little price, no, it's not as pricey as I thought. The battery backup to make sure it runs without power, probably being a little overcautious just because of the couple of times that we've lost power, we've had absolutely zero radio communications. Actually, the conversation with Brown's included battery backup bank like we have in the towers, or some of our radio towers, to give us extended period of.
That's the 6830.
Yes. Yeah. And then, the actual proposal for the backup system, it's two additional radios that are very similar to what we put in for the new 25 sheriff's officer. It's an understandable radio. These are two, one for fire departments and one for law enforcement. We also have two existing, which tie in with this radio console, which I was a little shocked at the price, but I understand why, which would tie all the radios in together to one console, because there's two standalones that we use for dispatching Ellsworth for our contract, which are digital radios that I purchased one, City of Ellsworth purchased one back several years ago when they changed to DMR digital. This will tie them all in together so we will be able to continue to provide the contract service plus a backup should they need to relocate here temporarily. That console also gives us the ability to send fire tokens and all that. We're regular just a radio so that makes us completely operational should we lose our primary radio system.
So these items were all talked about during that ARPA.
Correct. Yep. And I would request Browns as a sole source because they hold the contract for our services now. If we did bid this out, they would have to be involved anyway because of the interface with our existing systems. So we would be paying additional.
So, Bob, the 50,000 and the 67,000, this is equipment for the new EOC building.
Well, the 67,000 is for the EOC building, 50,000 is for existing, is a backup system in-house here.
It's the
And
6,000.
is the battery backup.
So
For the first.
For the first one, so really it's
50,000,
50,000 plus 6.
So it's really 58,000.
Pretty much. That's what they have.
Now, was any of this equipment used the EOC once you get it going?
Not this particular, but what this backup system will also allow us to do is for future, I talked a little bit about in my report about basically AT&T FirstNet, the ability to use cell phones as portable radios. This system will allow that. I'm still getting my head wrapped around the actual box that attaches to it that wouldn't be connected to our primary radio system, but would work so that our first responders,
our fire and our law enforcement folks, if they have a AT&T FirstNet cable phone, can, with an app, can utilize that as a portable radio. Doesn't replace it, but allows them to have areas, like Bar Harbor has a system in place right now. That when they go into like the Jackson lab, their radios don't work. As long as they have the cell service or Wi-Fi, they can communicate with dispatch and each other. So that this backup system, the $58,000 system, would allow us to expand to that in the future.
So what I don't understand the last one, this building doesn't exist.
No, this is for when he has his building. We're looking to add when he gets his building, if he gets his building. And if he doesn't get his building, we'll incorporate him within our own organization here. But these are for a backup, a place to go if this building becomes inoperable. We had to evacuate the RCC for some reason for an extended period of time. We would have a actual backup dispatch at the new EOC that Director Stankin talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, so my question is, if this didn't happen, if that building doesn't happen for some reason, this piece of equipment would go to the airport or something, or?
We could put it anywhere we have access to the county network. So my vision right now, because this building is not in effect, and I would like to get them now because of the pricing for one, I can utilize these anytime. I have 4 stations down there. We have a little laptop that we bought that didn't work out the way that we hoped. It conflicts with other existing radio systems. So I have that actually at Station 4. One of these I can already put at Station 4 and have employees operating. We talked about maybe putting the other console down in EMA for now so that they have access to that.
Okay, so it's not,
It's
this
not,
will be.
it's not gonna sit on the shelf for 2 years while we wait for a building to be built.
Well, that's my question.
Well, so where is the console going in the $50,000?
That's gonna go in the back of dispatch on the counter back there as a standalone. That's where we had the laptop already as a backup. So we had the ability, if we needed to bring in another person, they could.
But that's not the laptop you're talking about, replacing the $68,000?
No. These are 2 separate projects. I think they get lumped in together. But they're actually two separate projects. The 50,280 plus the 6,830 are a separate standalone backup radio system with battery backup.
So you don't think there's any advantage to putting off the 67?
So Andy and I did talk about that, and his concern was that if we wait, we don't do it, like he might be a year out, and if we go beyond the ARPA funding, the federal funding may not be available. If we had to pick it up later, because like what he's done for our radio consoles currently, that he was able to leverage FEMA federal money, FEMA money to do that. And I'd asked him about that. Is this something that maybe when it's closer down the road we could do? And his concern was that funding may not be, funding's there now, but it may not be available later on. So
This funding.
funding.
Well, it's only doing what I told all about this. If you want this aquifer, you better get in first, because it's just gonna run out at some.
And I did talk to the vendor a little bit about that. My concern was it's going to sit on the shelf for 2 years, up to potentially with we're paying service contracts and all that. Where we don't want to do that. You don't want to have it sit on the shelf for 2 years because these things have software updates all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so we would find a place to house them and utilize them until it was time to move them. And literally, it would be unplug them from where they sit and plug them in where they go. It's because they're on network. So it's, I was a little torn at first. I'm like, what, do we not? And EMA directors recommendations just get them, it's like, and use them.
So I'm gonna move to accept the proposal from Brown's Communication Incorporated to provide backup dispatch equipment in the sum of $50,280. Such funds to be paid for.
Okay, can you put in there sole source?
You're not comfortable doing all 3 at once. Well,
Yeah, there's a total for the 3. If I had read this earlier, I would have put the dollar amounts in as part of
you had a total amount.
124,460.
Okay, so But I took this as three different proposals. You do not want them as three different proposals.
Well, I mean, you're approving the whole project.
Yeah, but each project proposal is separate, so I mean,
That's why I was,
That's why I provided it
that's
that way.
why I think personally you should not lump them together, because by lumping them together, you're now treating them separately or as one whole thing, and technically they're not. If you're gonna do that, then you should submit one proposal for everything that's part of it. And there's no guarantee until you guys vote or come here today that you'd be in favor of all three or one or none or two or three.
so my motion reads this. Move to accept the proposal from Brands Communication Incorporated as the sole source, to provide backup dispatch equipment in the sum of $50,280 of such funds to be paid for from ARPA funds. I'm gonna treat them all separately because they're three different proposals.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second, I'm gonna move to accept the proposal from Brands Communication Incorporated as the sole source, to provide battery backup for the backup dispatch equipment in the sum of $6,830, such funds to be paid for from ARPA funds.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Third, I'm gonna move to accept the proposal from Brands Communication Incorporated as a sole source, to provide consoles for the new VOCC, sum of $67,350, such funds to be paid for from ARPA.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Not quite.
So explain it to me, Sam.
Well, what I'm here for today is just to go over the probate fee schedule with you, which I've been using and operating under since I took office. So I would just like to formally let you know what our fees are. They're all as allowed by the Maine Supreme Judicial Court and statutes. And I just thought it would be good business to formally adopt them and then make a decision about going forward. How would you like me to address any changes?
Excuse me, are you charging the district Superior Court fee now?
Yes,
And you can't change that, correct?
the Supreme Court has said that my fees have to be in alignment with theirs. So I wouldn't
That's what I
make it
mean.
higher.
Pardon?
So I wouldn't make it any higher than what the district fees are.
I guess I'm confused, and if you're following the district Superior Court fee schedule and you can't increase it, what's the issue? Why are we talking?
Oh, we're here because I just recently realized that I had never presented it to you formally. That I've just been working with the statute, and I thought it would be nice to let you know what the basis of these fees are, that they're not just,
Did you, excuse me, did you modify the fees once you took over?
yes. I met every modification,
To stay in line with Superior
yes.
and Judicial Supreme Court, yeah.
You know, she probably just needs a legislative body to.
That's what I'm saying, I'm thinking that's all she needs is for us to, what's the word?
Adopt them.
Yeah, she's on it, yeah, okay. Do you have a motion?
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I'm gonna move to adopt the current fee schedule with the proposed amendments as recommended by the Registrar of Probate, Julia Wilbur, present.
Second motion.
So, right now where we stand, when you figured out the revenue and everything, is that all already based on
Yeah.
fees that are
Yes.
existing fees that you've been charged?
Yes, that is correct. So I wouldn't anticipate any big changes in our budget
Yeah.
because I've already been operating with these fees. And moving forward, how would you like to address, for example, I stay abreast of the district news and rate changes and they seem to do them whenever. would you want me to, make them applicable by, the date that they're allowed by the state, or would you like us to formally request them during budget season?
So the question is, if you had a fee increase,
Yes.
when?
Yeah, there was a fee increase, say, in April, and they decided, for example, fees for action as a notary public, which I hadn't been collecting, but I realized on my most recent review that they're collecting. If they say that goes up to $15, would I have to wait until the budget season?
My opinion is you come in as soon as you want to implement that change.
Mhm.
And get our approval, right, Jones?
Well, yeah,
There's no reason to wait, make her wait a year.
I can just do it as more of an update.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
it just needs to be formally approved, though, doesn't it? We need to formally approve and adopt that fee.
I don't know that.
Oh, you just did.
Well, I know that, but I know we just did, but, and we probably need to do that. So the answer is yes, but her question is, does she want us, that she's asking is, should she wait till the budget period? To me, the answer is no,
Correct.
because the budget is just to set the budget.
And then the other question, and I think that's more, to clarify your concern is can I set the fee, the raised fee, and then come to the commissioners? And the reason I would do that is only to capture the revenue as I can. I don't want to miss out.
If we have the responsibility to adopt fees, then you shouldn't be implementing a fee until you've adopted.
Okay.
And the fact that every 2 weeks we meet and it's a done deal, you know that, that's not.
Okay.
She could retroactively, to me, that's what.
She should be implementing a fee that we have approved, if we have the responsibility to approve that, then she shouldn't be implementing a fee until we've approved it.
Then I'll just keep a more closer eye list on the fees and the meeting schedule here so that we
That's
can
not
just
from the
do
board,
that.
that's from me.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, that's my opinion, this is that. If we have responsibility, take the responsibility, if we don't come back to it. We appear to have the responsibility to adopt fees. And if that's the case, then she should be implementing a fee that we haven't adopted.
Yeah, but you're elected too, right?
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if she actually has, I don't know.
For Christ's sake, you just approved adopting the fee. Either we have that responsibility or we don't have the responsibility, which is it?
I'm not trying to fight with you. I'm just trying to honor this request. Her request was to adopt these fees. I don't know whose responsibility it is. If it's ours, you're correct. If it's hers, then I'm sure.
So
It's
wasn't there
irrelevant.
another, when you and I talked about it, wasn't there another statute that you would reference that had referenced the county commissioners and what other counties had been doing? So there was some fall in between fees that other counties had to go before their commissioners to get approved.
That was more me realizing that other registers went before the commissions to request approval of the fees. I had been working under the assumption, and it should be in your packet as exhibit. There should be a probate code, very short one.
Yeah, 1608,
Mhm.
fees not established.
Oh, not that.
It's not that much.
Oh, this is one I was.
But I thought.
For the confusion on this particular aspect of it, but I'm glad that we're addressing it.
How do you get notified of the fee changes?
The Supreme Court has updated correspondence, and I'm on a listserv, and we also check their independent page.
How often do the fees get changed? I mean, is it a regular thing to be changing fees all throughout the year, or does it happen just?
No, but I will say that in the research that I did to prepare for this showed that in the last 3 years, there has been changes. Before that, there had not been as many changes. So I think a lot of it was just to become more in alignment with actual true costs. But they shouldn't just fluctuate.
Julia, you have your thing in front of you. Can you go to page 16?
I don't have the whole thing in front of me.
Roman numeral 3 there. It says the following many entities are exempt from the imposition of the above fees. And how many courts are listed? What above fees are we talking about?
I think they're talking about the fees related to appeals and audio transcripts. These are legal statutes, so the more we're going to look at them and stare at them, there's a chance that it's not going to make sense at this time. If you'd like, I can certainly come back with a better refined memo regarding any future changes. I certainly don't want to hold up your meeting.
So really, the only question is who's responsible for adopting these,
Yeah.
right? So-
It's a revenue, it's a revenue maker, so it falls under the budget,
Do you
I would
think,
think.
excuse me, I didn't mean to- do you think that you could charge less, you just can't charge more? Would you have to charge?
I would not charge.
No,
less.
I'm just saying, would you have the ability to charge less as long as you don't charge more? Is that what that says?
I think so. We do have an indigent affidavit that people can complete, for example, if they meet the statute requirements of court appointment.
Unless otherwise specified. Probate shall charge the same fee. You know, I don't know why we're complicating this for ourselves. Civil process has fees. Those are dictated by statute. You have to pay those. We don't have to approve civil process fees because the statute dictates that. I think the same is true here with Juliet, that I think she has to charge the fee that the Supreme and the district and superior court charge. She must charge that fee. And as long as she's complying with that fee schedule, there's nothing to approve, and it dictates to her. It's not discretionary on your back. If you become aware that they've increased the fee, that is your new fee.
All right, so does
Wait
that
a
mean
minute,
that?
Julia, this is my opinion. Hang on
Okay.
a second. Please don't intend to disagree with me often, so I'm just telling you what my opinion is. And my opinion is that we don't have to. If she finds a fee change dictated by district and superior court, she simply makes that change, complies with the statute, and there's nothing for us to report. Does anybody disagree? Michael?
No, based on the information here, that's true, but I still know you and I talked about something and you showed me something that led to believe there was a certain fee that. So without, I mean, we can do additional research, but for today's purposes, I think that would be
This
fair.
motion doesn't hurt it.
I think
You
that would
stopped
be
in the middle
fair.
of the sentence. There were certain fees that
That indicated that Commissioner,
There is another fee that's set by the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services, it's the MCILS. And that is the fee that is paid to court-appointed representation. That is a fee that is, again, set just like the Supreme Judicial Branch's district and superior court fees, a fee that I adopted. Not every county has adopted it because there hasn't been consensus yet.
Just over the years, I've come to realize that just because somebody in other county doesn't do it, don't rule that as gospel.
Oh, right.
But are you saying that,
So what I'm saying is, I think you can go with what she's presented here, unless we find something else. And I wish I had kept a copy, but yeah, you didn't give it to me, we just talked
I'd
about
be
it.
happy to.
But unless we found something different, I would say that you're correct. That would be the process that she's outlined here, would be that it's set by, so as long as she's being consistent with what the statute is and those that make that decision, then there's nothing else for you to take action on.
So my motion is not.
So it might be moot, is what we've decided.
Yeah, because I just read Exhibit A a
Mhm.
couple times. It says basically you charge what they tell you to charge. It doesn't say anybody else's
It does.
responsibility.
I just wanted to make sure that I at least, when I learned that other counties had brought this to their commissioners, I wanted to follow suit and at least make sure that I was transparent with how the fees are set.
I don't think it need to be affirmed for us. And I think we should withdraw that motion because I don't want future boards to look at that motion and think that they're required to do this.
We haven't voted on it, right?
Yeah, I think we did. Didn't we vote?
You didn't actually vote,
No,
you
we
started
didn't
to
vote.
make a move, you moved to vote.
We did not?
No.
If you draw your motion, I'll withdraw my second. Oh,
Yeah.
I withdraw my second.
Yeah, motion's gone.
Okay. All right,
You have your direction.
keep the prices up to date.
Thank you.
Get as much money as you can. It's legally possible.
I will.
All right.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a great morning.
I'm hesitant to discuss this at an open meeting, but there are times when we turn to our human resources director and ask her for her opinion, were you involved in this? She hasn't been here last couple of meetings.
So she was gone last time on a scheduled day off, and today or this week, she's at training.
Okay, good.
So that's why she's not here today. And she did provide you with a couple memos on a couple items, so that, because she knew she couldn't be here.
So I'm gonna move to accept and file a human resource monthly report as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to accept and approve the monthly bills and warrants as presented.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, I got some transfers.
Year transfers, 2023.
So I'm gonna start, or did you want, okay. I'm gonna move to approve and sign FY 2023 end of year reserve account transfers for DA Department 3, Maintenance Department 6, RCC Department 7, Probate Department 8, Deeds Department 9, Sheriff Department 10, Sheriff's Department 13, IT Department 14, and the Airport Department 4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to approve and sign the Department 10G account transfer sheet for the buyout of Patrol Deputy Alan Dina from the town of Bucksport is approved on April 23rd. Commissioners.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All those opposed?
No, aye. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Now we're ready. Request to authorize the disposal of 3 copiers.
So sometimes in the past, obviously, when disposed of copiers and person we've authorized to purchase new ones, kind of part of the deal has been, the existing copiers go away with that, and in some degree, I think there might have been credits issued in the past, or not, I can't say that 100%, but in this particular case with the 3 copiers that you approved, technically, they will, the existing Transco will take them with them, but they're not giving us any credit for it. So basically, you're disposing of 3 copiers for nothing. So I'm asking for direction. I mean, we do have a disposition policy that says that if they determine that it's excess and all that, then there's this process you can go through, such as advertising them throughout the departments to see if any other departments are interested, and so on and so forth. But the question is, I mean, I hate to, I'm not sure the market out there beyond giving them to a contractor. I hate to give them away for nothing. And we have talked internally about maybe having one kept around as a spare, potentially utilized in some area that could be utilized. But technically, you have the authority to dispose of stuff, especially if it's above a couple $100. So looking for guidance on where you want to go. And that could be as simple as instructing me that just copiers. So there's 3 copiers. One is the existing KON Biz Hub here in the Commissioner's meeting room. Then there's 2 Xeroxes, one in the Treasurer's office that we use upstairs, and then one in the EMA.
It's just that we can't just go ahead and dispose of them without communicating with you.
Instruction.
The guy is willing.
I mean,
Can you think of an outlet for that? I mean, if we gave it to a charity, can you think of someplace that we could?
No, because there will always be a cost involved with some maintenance and supplies, and it's going to get expensive to maintain them without a contract.
well, I mean, if we kept him here, but what he's saying is, could we try to
Right.
give him away to another entity? Yeah, but that's up to them after that. If we
Oh,
could find
yeah.
somebody that's,
I mean, if Red Cross would take one, if then, you know.
I mean, we could certainly advertise, we can advertise and see what you get. I mean, if you want to go that route. Or if we did determine that one of them might still be usable that in a location here throughout the county.
I would wish that one.
But otherwise, you can authorize me to dispose of them accordingly, which could be giving them to the contractor or trying to find buyers first and then give them to the contractor if we don't.
Give you, I think, by consensus, we can say that you can dispose of them.
Yeah.
How you see fit. It goes to
The motion.
somebody.
So I'm gonna move to authorize the county administrator to dispose of 3 mentioned copiers as he sees fit. There's no credit, as they have no residual value.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. So I close the order.
So basically, the rules of order 4C was my attempt to kind of put in writing what you talked about at the last meeting. I don't know if I encapsulated that exactly as you wanted, but if it is so, then that's what I would propose based on the discussion.
Yes.
You're good with it? Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve the amended Hancock County Commission rules of orders.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioner comments or suggestions for future agendas?
County Administrator first. Please, and thank you.
Sorry.
I have a bunch here, no, actually, not on that, but one thing I did want to let you know, I got a call from John Doherty yesterday from Mission Broadband. He wanted to inform me and the commissioners that he has accepted a position with the state, and he's going to be leaving Mission Broadband at the end of this week. And we had really only 2 outstanding items with broadband. One was that Peninsula group thing, and he basically indicated through emails that he sent to me, which I could forward on to you, that they had told them that the commissioners weren't going to give him any money, that they'd gone beyond the time period and the benefit changes and all that. So the other issue that we're just waiting on is with Mount Desert, which is basically they were just having trouble getting a quorum for the meeting to approve the minutes where that meeting was held. Once they do that, that should be taken care of as well. But he did want me to extend his thank you to you and enjoyed working with you and all that.
So Mount Desert, if and when they get, they're going to get done, they'll contact you.
Yeah, they're gonna send us back basically a copy of the minutes. It shows that they voted to approve, which as far as I know was the last.
Yeah, that's what it was continued.
Yeah, that was the last thing, and then they would send us their, presumably same time, their request for payment for.
Because the other one's off the board, that's it for the.
And that should be it for existing ones. was. So then, based on that, we could come back to you and say X more dollars are now freed up.
Yeah, but I think weren't we a little bit, we were over. Wasn't it? I thought we were kind of over.
Well, there was
Under.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were still
I mean,
on,
over,
because we had put in, I think it was like $1 million at that time.
We could free up $1,359,000. That's the part that has not been committed in any way.
like, I know.
There's-
All right.
you know, something.
So, yes, anyway. And I mentioned in my weekly reports I sent you yesterday, but the town of Sorrento does not wish, I mean, obviously at 5 months in the year, they do not wish they're hiring their own person to do it. And we did get contacted by the town of Osborne, who's contemplating it, but as I stated in my message, basically, the smaller communities are having a hard time with that $2,500 stipend fee. The fact that they have to pay the same that all the other communities pay, and $2,500 is a huge amount, which in some cases, for some of these communities, is basically like their budget for the year that they might spend on an ACO and line item. So the thought process is, and I haven't done any specific research, but looking at to see what that might net for a gain if we started basing it proportionally to their per capita or something like that, so that the larger communities paying a larger percentage of that overall cost versus a small one. I'm not saying we would do that, but at some point coming back. Otherwise, we're gonna have some of these small communities, I think, depending on the transition in the executive administrative branches there, that you're gonna see come and go, come and go, come and go. And that's really like what happened with Sorrento, really, from what I understand. It's just, there was a change of the guard, and the new people didn't agree with what the prior administration had done, so they decided to go do it on their own. And what they thought was more cost
Right now,
effective.
Dewey's, when we look at the ACO position, is it paying for itself?
Yeah, at the moment, yes.
And that really is our goal.
And that's the ultimate goal, is that we wouldn't go in.
Yeah, if we start doing that, like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We really have to look at what would that do to the net that we charge right now? And one would assume that probably it wouldn't have a huge impact, because some communities would be paying more and some would be paying less. So you'd hope that it would kind of wash itself over the full adjustment. But again, without doing that calculation, I can't tell you that. But I think during budget discussions, like I said, and I may come back and say, we did this calculation. Here's where you'd be at if you want to consider that for 2025. I mean, we're locked in right now anyway, so.
I think that it's pretty much paying for itself, because there aren't an awful lot of outside costs. So they're paying that contract, and then they're also paying the fees quarterly for any activity for each town. They're being billed.
We really invested already upfront a lot of those costs, like the vehicle, which wasn't much to us, but still ended up being lower. And then, of course, all the equipment for the ACO. And some of those are perishable items, so we do have to replenish them. And in this case, he had a pair of gloves that were messed up from an animal, and then he had a pair that apparently were stolen. So, I mean, there are times when we have to reinvest, obviously. So, but that's not necessarily all the time.
One thing that we ignored is, eventually a reserve account for a vehicle. If we got by, and maybe we can do that again next time, but that's something.
And we did have those discussions.
Yeah.
Obviously, being new and starting out, there was different adjustments that were made, but yes, yeah. That would be part of our 25 goal. Other than that, I did give you a copy of the letter from home. Appreciation that we received another one as well. So those dollars that you awarded through the grants have been sent to those entities, and they're starting to send back their thank yous. So, and I'm good. That's it.
Okay. Any comments or suggestions for future agendas?
I don't have a future agenda issue, but I did, about 6 weeks ago, we discussed about mutual woman as income protection plan.
Yes, I haven't received an update from her recently, so I know that there was a discussion about trying to coordinate feedback. But I haven't heard anything else on it. I can follow up with her and see where we stand.
That's it then.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.